Hey guys! This is part 5 of What If Naruto Realized His Full Potential. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 13 Face Off. 200 miles off the Cha no Kuni shore. This is HQ, come inside. Rays of light pierce the moonlit surface above, fracturing and reaching hundreds of feet below to the depths of ocean where 24 men in navy blue and black shinobi diving gear remained suspended in circular formation. The ocean was silent and tranquil at the depth they were positioned, void of life due to the ships above them, disturbed only by the oxygen bubbles expelled by the shinobi's diving gear. One of the shinobi touched the communication device attached to his headgear. This is side lead, receiving you loud and clear. Another operative made a wrist-tapping gesture, indicating the time. Side lead held up a thumb and nodded, waiting for a response. What's the word on the operation, are we a go? You have the green light, Scythe. The squad leader looked up to the surface and back to his team. They were roughly 150 feet below the Red Harbinger, the Akatsuki flagship that led the blockade on Cha no Kuni. You heard it, let's go. This is Scythe to Sickle, we are a go. How do you receive? This is Sickle lead, receiving you loud and clear, we are a go. Kanahigaku no Sato. And although I suspect her relationship with Uzumaki Naruto has become inappropriate in nature, it has not affected her work ethic in any discernible way. Nakamaru Rei has proven time and again to be a resourceful comrade capable of working in perfect synchronization with the team and is a credit to the Border Patrol Guard's Niju Shotai. Uzumaki Naruto, SRC 012607, continues to become a stronger and greater asset to the shinobi force each day as he grows in experience. Thus far, he has displayed incredible ninjutsu abilities far above that what his files have indicated, a suspicious error I have numerously reported to Platoon Commander Kiza Enro. Though it is not stated in his files, Uzumaki has an affinity for wind and is capable of utilizing fire, earth, and water nature-type ninjutsu, a feat that complements his immense chakra reserves. Uzumaki has also shown exceptional control of the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, a B-ranked kinjutsu he seemingly performs with little to no effort and on a large scale, often creating several hundred clones for reconnaissance and combat purposes. Uzumaki uses this technique with remarkable strategy and tactical prowess. Perhaps most noteworthy is Uzumaki's ability to summon toads, an ability he credits to Jiraiya of the Sannin who has mentored him in the past. Tsurugaku gripped his pen tightly and frowned at the words he had written, glaring as he sat hunched over his desk. It wasn't exactly easy to give praise to the one person he despised more than anyone. Bitterness and envy compelled him to write the following. However, for all his skill and talents, Uzumaki Naruto lacks restraint and has repeatedly proven to be a malcontent and a liability. He is often quick to challenge the chain of command and follows orders begrudgingly. What strikes me as the most dangerous attribute of Uzumaki is his unpredictability, a trait that could lead to unfavorable scenarios on the battlefield and potentially harm his comrades. Tsurugaku leaned back into his chair, permitting himself a gratified smirk and a tug from his bottle of beer. He rarely indulged, but since he knew he couldn't leave out anything in his report, by mandate and personal principle, he allowed himself this vice. Tonight was one of those nights he wallowed in pensive self-pity and realized exactly dissatisfied he was with his career progression, or rather, lack of career progression. Perhaps he'd even allow himself a cigarette too. Might as well, he figured. He still hadn't heard a thing from Enro in regards to his ANBU application. Well, no, application was the wrong word for it. There were no such things as ANBU applications. Operatives were handpicked by the Hokage and the department's high-ranking members. To even be considered, one would have to stand out amongst the best of the best. Still, there were ways to make your interest in joining the department known, and sometimes, and this didn't happen unless you were an exceptional individual, there would be a response. As it so happened to be, Enro had some kind of regular connection with the ANBU given the fact he served as an operative in the Third Shinobi World War. Like most former operatives, Enro didn't speak much of his time with the department, thus tended to dodge questions, but Tsurugaku had heard the stories of the department's recruitment process. Anyone who wanted to join the ANBU would have heard a couple. Some said ANBU operatives kidnapped prospects in the dead of the night, whisking them off to their hidden headquarters, the location of which known only to its members and Konoha's top brass. Some said the ANBU would plant an invitation for recruits to find in their homes or even on their person, detailing the when and where of a meeting. The stories varied greatly, but truth be told, there was no real way of knowing how one could get inducted in the ANBU. Not even known former members spoke of it. It was as if they had all taken a vow of silence on that matter. Tsurugaku opened his drawer and pulled out a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. Yep, tonight was one of those nights. He was agitated, somber, and in desperate need of indulgence. He knew it was coming. Uzumaki was going to get out of the Niji Shotide before him, probably off to join a special task force or division that only permitted monsters like him to join. Kage bunshin my ass? Tsurugaku exhaled a dark cloud of smoke and took another tug from his drink. Yes, he could already see the smug expression on that blonde bastard's expression. That arrogant tool, if it wasn't for the Hokage. Tsurugaku gripped his bottle. How Uzumaki got so close to the Godame so fast, he didn't know, but it made his blood boil with rage and envy. If only he had such connections, he would have been promoted to Jonin and put in charge of his own team in no time. The disgruntled Chunin lifted his feet on his desk, only to accidentally knock over a near-empty bottle that spilled its remaining contents on Shikamaru's report. Damn it! Tsurugaku lifted the soaked piece of paper from his desk and threw it aside with a sigh as he caught a glimpse of the rising sun outside. It was already morning, but he couldn't care less. Team 312 had some downtime anyway. He could rewrite his report later. For now, he'd go to bed. Naruto's apartment. The sound of running water resounding from the bathroom came to a stop as Naruto stepped out of the shower wearing only a towel and running a hand through his lengthy hair. Naruto eyed his reflection in the mirror, considering whether or not he should get a haircut. It had been quite some time since he had it trimmed. His blonde hair nearly came down to his shoulders now and framed his face more than it used to. It had been 2 weeks since Tsunade's inauguration, and a lot had changed since then, Naruto mused, as he sauntered to his bedroom to get changed. For one, he had a girlfriend now, which was still a completely alien subject to him. It wasn't uncommon for shinobi to get involved, quite the opposite in fact, judging from his days in the academy and his entire life in Konoha in general, but that still didn't make it any easier for him to get used to having one. Rei had remained pretty much the same since they became a couple, if he could even call it that. Fortunately, she wasn't all touchy-feely with him or made him do things he didn't want to. There were no pet names or one date after another or anything like that. It was almost as if they were friends, who enjoyed some alone time now and again. And he liked it that way. It was simple and fun. Crap. Naruto caught a glimpse of movement on his bed. Ayam stirred and turned, blinking her eyes several times as she noticed Naruto standing by the bed shirtless. Kia! She yelped as she sat up and pulled the covers over her half-unbuttoned nightshirt. Really, you forgot again? This is the 3rd time this week. Naruto had the decency to look sheepish. Sorry, sis, I'm bad with breaking habits, he apologized as he fetched a short-sleeved shinobi-styled shirt from his closet and pulled it on. If you're up, you might as well have some breakfast with me. The most significant change since Tsunade's inauguration was that Ayam now more or less lived with him. With her old apartment destroyed and her father out of her life, Ayam was left alone and without a roof with her head, and while she was offered another place to stay, Naruto fiercely insisted she bunked with him for as long as she wanted. She caved in pretty easily, probably because they had known each other since they were kids and were the closest thing resembling a sibling either of them had. And by that you mean I should cook, right? Ayam saw through his transparent suggestion with an accusing look in her eyes. Naruto pretended not to hear her and left the room, turning to a smaller room that had served more or less as a walk-in closet where he stored most of his crap, boxes filled with old magazines, books from his academy days, dull kunai and shuriken and tons of other stuff he didn't need anymore and meant to throw out a long time ago. Since Ayam was a girl and he wanted her to be as comfortable as possible, he let her take his room while he slept in the smaller one that now contained a futon and nightstand. He didn't need all much room anyway given the fact he was on missions. As he entered his bedroom, he smiled at the new set of framed pictures on his nightstand, positioned next to the picture of Team 7's Rio graduation. The new pictures were from his 14th birthday. The largest could barely include everyone that showed up for the event at the barbecue restaurant, the original Rookie 9 and Team Guy and their sensei, Rei and Hayes, Shiho and Gikken, Irika and Enko, who actually invited herself, though Naruto had no complaints, Shizen and Tsunade, Jiraiya and Old Man Hiruzen who had been accompanied by the Konohamaru Corps and Ebisu. They all sat around a large table as they celebrated his 14th birthday, but more importantly, enjoyed a night of relaxation with their friends. There were no gifts or singing as would usually happen at a birthday affair. If anything, his birthday was more of a secondary event, and he was more than okay with that. They all had a great time enjoying good food and company, and Naruto knew he would always cherish the memory of that night. It was the best birthday he ever had. Fortunately, he didn't have to spend a dime since Jiraiya was feeling generous. Something so suspicious in itself, Naruto just knew Tsunade had something to do with it. He took a look at another framed picture of himself holding back Sasuke in the background whilst Kakashi, Neji, and Guy struggled to take down a drunken Lee. Swinging, his eyes drooped as he remembered the incident in which Lee had accidentally consumed a tiny amount of sake at some point, and went on a sudden rampage during which he broke the 3 tables, hit Choji so hard in the stomach the poor bastard puked, and gave Kiba a black eye. In another picture, and Naruto had to shake his head, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Hiruzen and Ebisu sat around a smaller table, red in the face as they read the latest of the Ika series. In the background, Tsunade looked like she was about to pummel them all. There were a few more pictures on the stand. He could stare at them for hours on end, but he had things to do. He got dressed in his usual attire sans bodysuit, and flack given to him by the Sandame, as it was his day off. As he pulled on his fingerless, metal-plated gloves and attached his tanto holster to his left hip, his eye fell on the Kodachi lying on his bed. He had been training with Hayes in the basics for a week or so now. Though far from an expert, Hayes was able to teach him some useful stuff, nothing too fancy, but enough to enable him to gain some proficiency in kenjutsu during their mock duels. "How do you want your eggs?" He heard Ayam call from the kitchen, disturbing him from his time-consuming thoughts. Still smiling, he finished attaching the last of his pouches and holster, and walked to the living room where Ayam placed down 2 plates with toasts, some condiments, and rice. They sat and ate, making some small talk as enjoyed their meal in general silence. "How are you holding up, sis?" Naruto probed gently. "With everything, I mean." Ayam had been incredibly resilient about the entire situation regarding her father. He was relieved she wasn't miserable, but he worried she was bottling up her feelings. "That couldn't be healthy. I'm dealing with it," Ayam replied in an almost nonchalant tone. "Slowly but surely. It's not like I have much choice anyway." A day after Tuchi's imprisonment, Ayam was briefed on what happened. Naruto had insisted on being there when she learnt the truth from Tsunade. He had hoped to be some sort of moral support, someone to lean on, a shoulder to cry on if need be. But for some reason he couldn't quite grasp, Ayam, either through pure resilience or by feigning, had rolled with the punches. She hadn't gone hysterical like they had expected her to. She didn't scream at them. She didn't even question they were telling the truth. Granted, she was genuinely in shock, speechless and tearful, but by the time she had processed the information, she seemed to have made her peace with it. Naruto couldn't quite relate, having never known his parents, or what it was like to have any, but he was certain he'd lose his mind if he ever found Irika or Hiruzen weren't who he thought they were. How Ayam managed to keep her sanity was beyond him. In a way, as horrible as it felt to think it, Naruto had newfound admiration for her. She was a lot stronger than he had given her credit for. But still, he wanted to be there for her. One way or another, he didn't quite know how, but he just wanted to let her know he cared. So when she reached to refill his rice bowl, Naruto grabbed her hand gently and looked at her with as much seriousness and empathy he could muster. "I can't imagine what you're going through, so I won't pretend to know what it's like, but please don't let this change you, Ayam Nichin. You don't have to pretend everything is fine for my sake. I want to be there for you." "I know you do, Naruto," Ayam acknowledged with a slow nod, wrestling her wrist free from his hold as gently as he had grabbed her. Father turning out to be someone else, it was a lot to deal with. It still is, but I'm getting there. I don't blame you or Hokage-sama for I'm sorry he didn't recognize you, Naruto whispered so low as though it hurt him to say it. He didn't recognize me either. I guess I can relate how that feels, if only a little. It's for the best, Ayam said. My father is dead. That man, that cold person, whoever he was, there is no way that could be my father. So, whatever they had to do with him. I'm not necessarily okay with it, but I've made my peace with it. I just want this terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach to go away. Naruto nodded slowly, not in understanding but acceptance. He wasn't going to dictate to her how she had to deal with this. I know Tsunade Bakun said you could move into a new apartment whenever you want, but if you don't want to, you can stay here and live with me for as long as you like. There was an uncomfortable silence following his offer. He was about to take it back, but one look in her eyes and he could tell she wasn't offended by the suggestion. Rather, relieved? I mean, we're practically family, right? It wouldn't be weird, would it? No, Ayam agreed hastily. I've known you practically your whole life. But are you sure you wouldn't mind? Father used to complain I'm loud. Naruto smiled broadly. Great! He exclaimed enthusiastically. Then we can be loud together and piss off the landlord. Had it been anyone else, there would have undoubtedly been an awkward moment following that statement. Fortunately, they knew each other practically their whole lives, so whatever room there had been for innuendo simply didn't matter. You can be as loud you want. I don't mind since I'm pretty loud myself according to, well, everyone. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, grinning like an idiot but proud nonetheless. He made Iam smile again. I'd love to move in with you, Naruto, Iam confessed with a deep sigh. I would hate living on my own. I'd probably keep saying I'm home out of habit, even though no one would answer. I know what that's like, he mumbled under his breath. What? Then it's settled, Naruto decided for them, ignoring her question. You keep my room since I don't need all the space. I just let it all clutter anyway. Besides, I'll be on missions a lot, so I won't have as much as need as you do, especially since you're a girl and all. Iam ignored that last remark. Usually, she would have chewed the blonde out for it, but she didn't want to ruin the moment. Naruto wolfed down the last of his meal and got up. I'm going to pay Hiruzenjiji a visit later, so I'll probably be home late. Don't wait up, he added jokingly. Iam simply rolled her eyes at him. Standing outside of the door, Naruto's carefree smile melted off his face, replaced by more serious expression. It had become a ritual of his to take a minute and settle his demeanor. If Iam-chan is gonna stay with me permanently, I guess I'll have to tell her eventually. He could only imagine Iam's reaction to finding out what he was. It wasn't a conversation he looked forward to. Konoha Academy Training Ground. You're late again. Konohamaru complained loudly as Naruto approached the Konohamaru Corps. Why is it you're always late for our training, Naruto-niken? Naruto squinted his eyes in a silly expression, much like the one Jiraiya did to him during their training sessions. You dare complain when you are being taught by the great Uzumaki Naruto? He cracked his knuckles in feigned menace. Perhaps we should focus on taijutsu today, what do you say, Konohamaru-kun? All color drained from Udan and Moegi's faces, but Konoha stood his ground and raised a defiant fist at the blonde. You talk big now, Naruto-niken, but one day I'll make you eat those words. Just as soon as I perfect my new jutsu. Naruto crossed his arms over his shoulders and grinned cockily. Your new jutsu? He raised an intrigued eyebrow. Oh, I want to see this. Show me what you got. It's not finished, Konohamaru said, getting somewhat red in the face, flushed at being put on the spot. But fine! He burst out. Behold my new perverted nin. Crack! Cut it out! Moegi bellowed, raising her fist from her fellow academy student's cranium, who now rolled on the ground holding his head in pain. Naruto could only laugh at the youngster's misfortune. Rookie mistake, Konohamaru. You never show off that type of technique off in front of girls, that's just asking for it. Now then, he clapped his hands together as Konohamaru got to his feet, shooting Moegi a resentful glance. It's time to get started. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. With pillars of smoke, two identical shadow clones appeared next to the original. We're going to see if we can get the Kawarimi down today. You've memorized the theory, haven't you? The three nodded simultaneously. Good, then let's get started. 2 hours later, Naruto held up a hand and looking to his clones as they taught Konohamaru and Udan. Okay, that's enough for today. You're slowly but surely getting there. Why is it taking us this long? Konohamaru complained in a whining tone. We've been at it for 3 days, but we still can't get it down. And it's only an E-ranked jutsu. Naruto shook his head at the young shinobi. Practice makes perfect. I was so dense and lazy in the academy it took me the better part of a year to master this jutsu. It may be only an E-ranked jutsu, but it's incredibly useful and literally a lifesaver. Flashy techniques are great and all, but they're next to useless if you don't know the basics. But Naruto-niken, aren't higher rank techniques better? Moegi asked innocently, as if on cue the clone opposite her went through a string of hand seals took a deep breath. Katon dash! Before even a wisp of flame could escape, the second clone threw a kunai at the first, dispelling the clone and canceling the jutsu. Does that answer your question? Asked the second Naruto clone. If you can't substitute in a fight, you'll likely be dead in seconds. Especially if you're caught going through hand seals or charging chakra. Naruto glared at his clone. Shut up, I was going to say that. The clone stuck out his tongue and dispelled itself, leaving the original to turn to his students. Now you know just how useful the Kawarimi jutsu is. I expect you never underestimate it or any other low-ranked jutsu. It's not jutsu that win the fight for you. You have to work at it, and you have to be able to use your jutsu effectively. Understood? The three nodded once again, this time with more vigor. Good. Then let's get out stuff and get out of here. Undisclosed location. Kisame rested Samahata on his shoulder, turning to look at Itachi as the raven-haired Uchiha approached him, unraveling bandages from around his forehead. Ready to go? The question was pointless. S-ranked shinobi knew better than to rush their recovery. If they didn't, they wouldn't have lived long enough to reach such status. Itachi merely nodded. He looked pale and fragile. Kisame chalked it up to his partner's strange diet, which consisted mostly out of herbs and elixirs Kisame could not stand the stench of. Gaining entry may be difficult. The invasion has left Konoha tense, he stated the obvious. Do not worry, I will take care of it. Itachi removed the last of the bandages and slid on his Akatsuki cloak and affixed his straw hat. Let's go. Itachi stalked past the large shark man, slowly yet steady and purposefully, as though nothing could stop him from reaching his destination. This side trip took longer than I had expected. We must hurry. Why is it important this Danzo person knows you are alive? Kisame remained where he stood, and had no intention to move until his question was answered. Itachi picked up on this and turned to his partner. It is important, so that he stays away. Stays away? Kisame repeated with confusion. Stays away from what? Exactly what was his stoic partner afraid of? Kisame rarely saw even a hint of emotion from the Uchiha, but he knew Itachi, for all his power, was still a man, and all men knew fear, even Itachi. If not for themselves, for someone else. This time Itachi did not stop to answer, nor did he give any indication he was going to as he continued to walk. It became clear to the former Kiri shinobi he would not get an answer to that question. There were some things men simply did not share, not even if it meant breaking up a partnership through their silence. Kisame shook his head with a wry smile. You're a strange one, Itachi, he said as he began to move in the same direction. As are you, Kisame. Dango's shop. Thanks for the meal, Naruto Naiken. Konoha Maru and Moegi said in unison as they hopped off the stools and left the Dango's shop. Thank you for the meal, Naruto Naisama. Udan added with a respectful bow of his head. Stay out of trouble. Naruto yelled after them, addressing the Sandame's grandson more than anyone. I mean it, Konoha Maru. The young brat waved and nodded his head dismissively. Yeah, I hear you, Naruto Naiken. Naruto let out an exasperated sigh, knowing full well the Konoha Maru Corps would most definitely not stay out of trouble. Moegi and Udan weren't the problem. They were rather polite and kind, but Konoha Maru worshipped chaos much like he himself used to back in the academy. Oh, well, if it isn't my favorite blondie. Naruto looked over his shoulder and met Anko with a deadpan stare. He had yet to forget her behavior at the restaurant. What do you want? It came out sounding rather moody, but it wasn't exactly easy being civil to her after that incident. Anko lifted several Rio bills from the toad-shaped wallet in her hands and paid the vendor. She smiled coyly at him as she approached holding a tray with over a Dango stick stacked on it. Are you still upset about last time? She needlessly asked as he devoured a stick with as much grace as Jiraiya behind a peephole. I apologized, didn't I? You tried to molest me in the men's bathroom and I'm pretty sure that's my wallet, he added, pointing at it as she stowed it under shirt. Nonsense, this is a common wallet. I've had it since I was a little girl. And molest you? Anko exclaimed with mock indignation. Come now. I was simply trying to give you a gift. Stick to regular gifts next time, like a book or a scarf or that wallet? Anko rolled her eyes and retrieved the toad-shaped wallet and tossed it to him. Thanks. For the record, it was Jiraiya-sama's idea, Anko admitted with a toothy smile adorned with Dango sauce. Does he know you don't like pussy? I have a girlfriend. Naruto snapped at her, red in the face over her crude language. And you're insane. And you're boring. Anko stuck her tongue at him as she left the Dango shop. Bye. Naruto shook his head a few times as he walked off in the opposite direction. Hokage Tower. Shizen pushed past the heavy oak doors as she entered Hokage's office, clutching a fresh stack of mission files for Tsunade to go over. Things were just about getting quieter in the tower now that they had finally caught up with the majority of paperwork backlog that went untouched during Hiruzen's convalescence. Tsunade-sama, Shizen addressed the Godame as she approached her desk. Not now, Shizen. You can put those there. Tsunade sat behind her desk, leaning into her chair as her eyes remained glued to the unfurled scroll in her hands. Jiraiya-sama? Shizen recognized the Toad Sage's mark on the scroll. Tsunade nodded, tossing the scroll to her. Haim, the rumors I set out to investigate appear to be midway truth and false. My contacts in Ishi, Taki and Hoshi have all confirmed the village leaders were invited by Kusa envoys to attend a secret summit in Shimo no Kuni 1 month from now. The precise time and location of the summit are currently unknown, but from what I have gathered, this meeting is of a militaristic nature. To what extent, I can only guess, but I believe in time other minor villages with significant military power will be invited to attend the summit. In other words, it is likely our old acquaintance Hebe will be approached, and he will likely attend if he stands to gain. My contact in Ishii Boulder has assured me Ishii will attend the summit only to gather information. I trust him on his word, Haim. We fought side by side in the rebellion that forged Ishigekure. After all Konoha has done to aid them, it is unlikely Ishii will betray us. We have the allegiance of many of their council. I predict I will have more information soon. Until then, Gamma. Shizen looked up from the letter to Tsunade with a suspicious frown. Boulder? It's a codename used by a uncouth man from Ishigekure. Tsunade folded her arms over chest with angry red tinge gracing her cheeks. Shizen noticed her right hand tightly gripping her left arm. Whoever this Boulder was, he must have gotten on her nerves. I met him only a few times myself, but Jiraiya considers him a close friend. There's something like war buddies, in fact. Tsunade released an exasperated huff in remembrance. The two of them could be brothers. They met during Ishigekure's infant years. Shizen had heard of the Hidden Stone Village before. Anyone that knew anything about the Second Shinobi World War knew about the Hidden Stone. It was a shinobi village born from the mutiny within the Iwagakure war machine that occurred towards the end of the war. The history surrounding the emergence of the Hidden Stone began with several high-ranking members of Iwa's shinobi forces when it became apparent Konoha and its allies were going to win. The sandaime Tsuchikage, Ryotenbin no Inoki, refused to call for an armistice, and with the daimyo of Tsuchi no Kuni firmly supporting Inoki, the opposition's leaders felt they had no other choice, and thus rebelled in an attempt to remove the sandaime Tsuchikage, a fatal attempt for most of the rebel leaders, who were executed publicly before they had the chance to mobilize. Those that survived the short-lived civil war that followed fled to Mineral County, Iwa's infinitesimal neighboring country. The daimyo of Mineral Country, related to the Rock Country's royal house, had long resented having to rely on his relatives for protection, and openly welcomed the former IWA shinobi and allowed them to remain within his country in exchange for their fealty. Naturally, this caused an international uproar, and as Tsuchi no Kuni's daimyo marched in his army and shinobi force, the sandaime Hokage saw an opportunity to force Tsuchi no Kuni in a war on two fronts, counseled the Hai no Kuni daimyo to give military aid to Mineral Country. Tsunade-sama, exactly how does Jiraiya-sama know this Boulder person? Shizen asked. Around the time Ishigekure was being set up, many of their shinobi were young, inexperienced and poorly trained. Tsunade began to explain. Hiruzen-sensei sent us along with other shinobi to teach them what we could to fight IWA shinobi. A dawning expression befell Shizen. History had always been a passion of hers and when she was younger. What did you teach them? Tsunade sucked her teeth with mild irritation. All these questions were making her really feel her age. I taught them basic field medic techniques with the little time I spent there. Jiraiya and Orochimaru taught ninjutsu. I guess that's how they met Kinzen. Kinzen? Tsunade rolled her eyes. Boulder's real name, she elaborated. Kinzen was plenty strong on his own, so he helped Jiraiya in teaching, and I guess the pervert got a real taste for it since not long after he. Tsunade fell quiet as she was revisited by the memory of the three young Amigekure orphans they came across after their defeat at the hands of Hanzo the Salamander. Those three orphans had long since died, so he heard from Jiraiya many years ago. Tsunade smiled mirthlessly. Jiraiya carried their deaths the same way she carried the deaths of Dan and Nawaki. He what, Tsunade-sama? Shizen asked tentatively, sensing a discomfort in her master. That is a story for another day, Tsunade decided firmly. Anyway, Jiraiya and Kinzen got along better than most. They fought constantly, but they were like brothers. I suppose Jiraiya took a liking to him since they were so alike, and he was an orphan himself. So while he had me, Sensei and Orochimaru, she said the name with disgust, he never quite had anyone he considered family. Kinzen was like the brother he never had. He even used to joke they must have been separated at birth. Oh, Shizen said quietly. She couldn't think of anything else to say. For as long as she had known Jiraiya, she had never once considered the burdens he carried. The sage was always so cheerful, she didn't even begin to think of his past. You care for him a lot, don't you, Tsunade-sama? You know Jiraiya-sama better than anyone. That will be all, Shizen, Tsunade replied dismissively, bringing the conversation to an end. Get back to work. Saratobi compound. The sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure lied peacefully in his bed as he awoke to the sound of tipping water resonating from the gardens, the scent of herbs and flowers and the warmth of the afternoon sun. The former Kage heard footsteps down the hall outside of his room and sat up just as the doors slid open and allowed entry several of his clansmen who accompanied another. How have you been, Kosuke? It's been a long time. Hiruzen smiled at the sight of his old friend. Mariboshi Kosuka, too, was an elderly man in his late 60s, also known as the 10,000-year genin. Kosuka had distinctive green eyes and wore his gray hair in a short ponytail. His attire consisted of a mesh armor shirt under a short brown sleeveless kimono and gray shinobi trousers. On his back, Kosuka carried a metal pan, under which he fastened a bundle of kitchenware. Across his lower back, he carried a sword sheathed horizontally. Too long, old friend, Kosuka hummed with a smile as he sat down by Hiruzen's bed. Would you care for some stew? Have I ever passed up on the opportunity? Hiruzen asked jokingly. He turned to his clansmen waiting by the door and gave a nod. Thank you. The Saratobi clansmen took their dismissal and bowed on their way out, sliding the door to a close. Kosuka began to set up his cooking equipment and materials as he spoke. I would have come sooner, but I was told you needed your rest. The elderly genin settled his pan on the wooden stand and unfurled a scroll, from which he unsealed a tank of water. I could use a good square meal, Hiruzen chuckled. I'm just about done with these. The Saratobi clan head gestured to the forest stand next to his bed. Has Tsunade propositioned you yet? Kosuka laughed, giving a nod as he began peeling potatoes on his lap and diced them into small cubes. She did, and you said no? Hiruzen knew the answer before he got it. Of course, he chuckled. At this point, he couldn't blame him. Some spices, please, the former Kage motioned to a bundle of green and red peppers. They don't let me have anything spicy in my diet. It's as if my dear Biwako is still alive. Kosuka smiled gently at the mentioning of the third's late wide. She was a one-of-a-kind woman, Biwako. The room fell silent for a moment. You still intend to retire when you retire, I take it? Kosuka nodded and Saratobi sighed with mild exasperation. In a way, I envy you, but will you not reconsider and take a teaching position rather, Kosuka? You have many things to pass on to the next generation. Konoha's strongest genin shook his head. I have nothing to teach that others cannot. I will die a shinobi's death, old friend. I will die in service. Hiruzen looked downcast, prompting Kosuka to put down the utensils in his hands and pat Hiruzen on his shoulder. There is no shame in the way you will die, Saratobi Hiruzen. You have fought more battles than anyone, you have overcome more obstacles than anyone, you deserve to die in peace, surrounded by your loved ones. Thank you for your kind words. Hiruzen bowed his head and Kosuka resumed chopping up vegetables as precise and methodical as always. Still, I no longer can say I feel like a true shinobi. I feel as though there are still things I can do for the benefit of the next generation. Perhaps, in time, your answer will present itself. Kosuka offered what little wisdom he could as he began to chop up onions and added them to orange stew, but for now, let us eat and talk some more. It has been a long time since we spoke. Kosuka leveled his ladle and filled a bowl of spicy vegetable stew and offered it to Hiruzen. Hiruzen took the bowl with both hands and took a sip, relishing in the taste and aroma. As good as ever, Kosuka. Thank you truly, hee. Perhaps I will share my secret before I die, Kosuka joked with a chuckle. The pair of elderly shinobi continued to sip and slurp from their bowls, making no attempt at any etiquette. They were far too old and far too familiar with one another for such frivolity. I was approached the other day by Shimura-kun, the man in genin mentioned conversationally. Danzo? Hiruzen frowned at the name. I thought he gave up on recruiting you. Despite his appearance and rank, Kosuka was a highly respected shinobi of exceptional skill. I take it you're refused? Kosuka nodded. Of course. Hiruzen fell short in his following sentence. He and Kosuka looked to the door as another pair of footsteps resounded from the hallway. The doors slid open, pushed aside carefully as Naruto entered the door. Naruto-kun. Naruto lit up at the sight of his surrogate grandfather. Hey, Gramps, he greeted with a broad smile. I figured I'd come pay you a visit, but looks like you've got a visitor. I can come back later. No, stay, Hiruzen insisted with a shake of his head. He then gestured to his right. This is Mariboshi Kosuka. He is my oldest friend. You may have heard of him. The man in genin? Naruto had heard a few stories about Konoha's oldest genin in active service from Hayes. Admittedly, he didn't quite believe how old Kosuka was said to have been, but clearly Kosuka lived up to the old as fuck part, or so the swordsman had elegantly put it. Care for some stew? Kosuka offered, raising his ladle to another bowl as he poured the broth and vegetables in it. It is quite tasty. I could eat. Naruto pulled a chair from the other side of the spacious bedroom and sat down next to Kosuka. Thank you, Maru. Kosuka is fine. Naruto took a mouthful of the stew and nearly swallowed it instantly. Incredible! he exclaimed with bulging eyes. This is delicious. There's plenty more, so eat up, Kosuke encouraged. Naruto gladly indulged on the opportunity, devouring the contents of his bowl in seconds. He was well on his way with his second when he remembered something. For the first time ever, Hiruzen had nothing but free time on his hand. In other words, he had no excuse of being too busy to answer his questions. Hiruzen Gigi, I've been meaning to ask you something for a long time now. Hiruzen frowned slightly. Was this one of those rare moments Naruto asked about his parentage? Perhaps rare wasn't the right word, but over the past few years Naruto had shown increasingly less persistence or interest in finding out about his parents. What is it, Naruto-kun? Naruto's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. You were trained by the Nidaime, weren't you? Hiruzen seemed to be surprised by that but nodded nonetheless. Yes, I was taught by Tobirama-sama. Why do you ask? I was just wondering. Naruto rubbed the back of his head somewhat embarrassed. He was never one for history and had often brushed off Hiruzen's attempts to teach him in the past. But here was, mere months after his promotion, and he was a changed person. Could you tell me what he was like? I mean, I've been saying I want to be Hokage someday for years, but I don't actually know anything about the Hokage except for you and Tsunade back on. Hiruzen took a deep breath, setting aside his bowl as he looked at Naruto intently. For a moment he could have sworn he was speaking to a 14-year-old Minato. The Yondaime had asked him the very same question in his youth on one of the occasions Jiraiya brought him along. Tobirama-sensei was an incredibly gifted shinobi. You know that, of course. Naruto nodded to this immediately. But it is not his jutsu I like to define him by, or anyone for that matter. The Sandaime shared a knowing look with Kosuke, who seemed just as interested as Naruto in knowing what the former Hokage thought of his sensei. Well? Naruto prodded after a moment. He wasn't the most patient person in the world. That would probably never change about him. He was a very shrewd man, Hiruzen decided in the end. He always had a reason for everything he did. He never allowed his emotions or impulses rule him. Truly, he was amongst the greatest of shinobi, but personality-wise, he wasn't what you would call normal. How so? Naruto had to ask. Hiruzen stroked his beard as he explained, perhaps to himself as much as his surrogate grandson. Being a shinobi was all Tobirama-sensei cared for. He had no wife or children, nor did he seem to have no interest in ever settling down to have either. His greatest passion was developing ninjutsu, and while he exceeded greatly at that, his obsession made him an unsociable person. Tobirama-sensei was always straight to the point. He didn't care much for anything else but being a shinobi. Naruto frowned, not having expected to hear the Nidaime was such a stoic person. It reminded him too much of Niji's demeanor. Gigi, he did care for you though, right? You were his student, weren't you? I mean, the Nidaime died sacrificing himself to save his team. You were on that team, weren't you? Tobirama-sensei was certainly capable of affection, but he rarely showed it to anyone. He was much more reserved than Hashirama-sama, Hiruzen explained. I would like to think Tobirama-sensei sacrificed himself for us because he cared about us, but in all honesty, I don't believe his self-sacrifice was an act of affection. Why not? He didn't have to do it, but he did it anyway. How is that not affection? Naruto had to admit it was somewhat ridiculous for him to defend the Nidaime when he had never met the man, especially against his own student who was practically raised by him. Hiruzen, on the other hand, couldn't help but chuckle somewhat. Though less passionate, Minato had more or less raised the same point in the past. Tobirama-sensei was a shrewd man, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen repeated. He had long since known I would one day surpass him, he had told me that himself, so it was the logical choice for him to sacrifice himself and take Kumogakure's Kinkaku force down with him, allowing me to move on, realize my potential and carry on the will of fire. It is most likely his sacrifice was an act of pragmatism rather than affection. So even in saving your life at the cost of his own, he had a logical motive? Naruto couldn't even begin to imagine what kind of person someone would have had to be to think that way. He was a true shinobi, wasn't he? Tobirama-sama was the one that wrote the shinobi codes used to this day by Konoha, Kosuke reminded with a nod, adding to his statement. So, yes, he truly was a great shinobi, Konoha's oldest genin agreed. Naruto frowned with confusion. Wait, what is the Kinkaku force? The history books in the academy wouldn't have mentioned them, I suppose, said a familiar voice. Naruto, the only one to have not noticed, turned to see Giken standing in the doorway. How are you holding up, Hiruzen? That's right, you two are friends, huh? Naruto remembered. Giken sauntered over, pulling another chair and sat down. So what are you old farts teaching this dimwit? Nice to see you too, Gramps. Naruto shook his head at the mad scientist and turned to Hiruzen again. We didn't learn about the Kinkaku force in the academy, at least I don't think so. I might have skipped that lesson. The Kinkaku force was Kumogakure's ANBU counterforce, Kosuke informed helpfully. They were extremely skilled individuals, highly trained and disciplined. They were perhaps the only force in the world that could withstand our ANBU. The other villages had yet to follow our lead and create their own at the time. Did they ever beat us? He had to ask because he was a patriot, and it mattered. The ANBU are the best of the best, right? They couldn't have been too much trouble. Oh, they gave us trouble, all right, Gikken answered with a shake of his head. You wouldn't believe the damage they did, few as they were. Their teamwork was unmatched, and what made it worse was that all of them were incredibly powerful shinobi in their own right. Quite a few of them were S-ranked, meaning any one of them could have been a Kage. Naruto's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. You're telling me the Nidaime took out an entire team of Kage-leveled shinobi on his own? That's impossible, for anyone but the Nidaime, Gikken shrugged, helping himself to the bowl of fruit next to Hiruzen's bed. He had a specific skill set no one has been able to match since the Yondaime. Time-space manipulation jutsu, Hiruzen elaborated before Naruto had to ask. A very rare and very difficult to perform type of jutsu intimately related to Fuinjutsu. Hiruzen decided it would be best not reveal the Nidaime used the Edo Tensei to summon his brother to fight alongside him against the Kinkaku force. He had already lost a student to the temptations of that technique. Naruto blinked a few times. You're telling me the Nidaime could teleport? Saying it out loud made him feel foolish. The notion of it was simply absurd. The closest thing to teleportation jutsu shinobi could use was the shunshin, and that was high-speed movement through the use of chakra. It wasn't even close to actual teleportation. Among other things, Hiruzen replied vaguely. The Yondaime had a similar jutsu, the Hiraishin. You have undoubtedly heard of it, the Sandaime assumed, to which Naruto nodded. The Nidaime's jutsu inspired Minato-kun to create it. He too was quite shrewd, now that I think of it. Minato? He was too distracted by the name to notice the glances between the elderly men in the room. That's the Yondaime's name, isn't it? It is indeed. Why does it sound so familiar? He could have sworn he had heard someone else say the name before, a long time ago, a woman, but he couldn't remember who. What was he like? You should ask Jiraiya, Hiruzen advised. I'm sure he could tell you a great deal more than I could. Sure. Jiraiya probably wouldn't mind it one bit telling him of his former student. What about the Shodai? Suddenly Hiruzen burst out laughing, as did Gikken and Kosuke, though at a lower volume. I never thought I'd live to see the day you'd be interested in history, Naruto-kun. Forgive me, but it's an extraordinary sight. Hey, I'm just trying to cover my bases here, Naruto said defensively. I need to know what I need to live up to. Then I suppose I should tell you, Hiruzen agreed jokingly. The remainder of the night was spent much like the lengthy history lessons Naruto suffered in his academy days. Only this time it was actually interesting because he was getting detailed accounts from the people that had actually fought during the wars, and their sides of the story were free of the censorship that was in place in the academy, where they had focused mainly only the effects post-war time, which was incredibly boring in comparison to the gritty tales the elderly shinobi had to offer. Naruto particularly learned a great deal of the First Shinobi World War, in which Hiruzen had been about his age when it started, already a jonin, much to Naruto's envy, at the age of 14, and a Kage by the time the war came to an end. They even told him about supposedly classified mission and operations that took place, old wartime tactics they used in the field, and gruesome injuries they and their comrades sustained, or at least Kosuke and Hiruzen did. Gikken admitted he was never much of a fighter, but that his genius intellect was very much welcomed in the weapons development department. And Naruto had a lot of questions about seemingly everything and everyone. The old men indulged him, enjoying the opportunity for nostalgia. All in all, it was an incredibly interesting night Naruto would never forget. Konohagakure outskirts. It was nightfall by the time the duo arrived within considerable distance of Konoha's gate. The skies were cloudless and a dark shade of indigo beautifully accentuated by the stars. A calm, soothing breeze scattered fallen leaves. The sensor barrier, visible only to those with dojutsu, stretched out for miles in an immense sphere around the Hidden Leaf Village's center, designed to alert the Konoha barrier team in the case of an attack. Itachi came to a stop on the dirt road and turned to his partner, who stopped next to him. The barrier is approximately 30 feet away from us, the Sharingan user informed. He didn't need his Sharingan to know that, though. His time in Anbiyu had educated him on the tiniest details of the barrier. This barrier ninjutsu, Kisame looked to his younger companion. I don't suppose I can just disable it with Samahata, huh? Itachi shook his head. The barrier will sense any and all disturbances. We cannot simply disable it. We can only bypass it if we want to move undetected. His eyes shifted to the massive, bandage-wrapped sword resting on Kisame's shoulder. Samahata must not absorb any chakra from the barrier. Samahata won't be a problem, the shark man assured casually. It's gotten rather picky with the chakra it absorbs these days. In fact, it's been begging me to let it have some of yours, he added jokingly. That is disturbing, Itachi noted as he took a few steps closer to the barrier, and his Sharingan eyes began to spin ominously. Once we break past the barrier, you make certain you follow my lead precisely, he instructed his blue-skinned partner. The next day, Kakashi held his orange book aloft as he stood in the middle of the clearing, lazily glancing from Naruto to Sasuke as the two looked slid in their fighting stances. Do I have to go over the rules again? Kakashi stifled a yawn as he asked. No, I got it, Naruto replied. Sasuke scowled. Let us fight already. He was wearing his all-black combat attire from the Chunin exams. Kakashi frowned at his genin student. This isn't real a fight, Sasuke. This is simply a friendly match between two comrades. Casual appearance aside, Kakashi was rather apprehensive of letting these two fight. It had been 2 weeks since he offered to continue training Naruto, but in between missions and scheduling, there had yet been an opportunity for these two to actually fight. The more time passed, the tenser it got between his students, and thus Kakashi had no choice but to finally allow it. The way things were headed, they were bound to fight this one out, with or without his supervision. On that note, Kakashi rubbed the back of his head and sweat dropped as he glanced over his shoulder to the mass of shinobi gathering. Exactly why are there so many people here? Naruto. The scarecrow looked to his blonde student. Naruto gave Kakashi an impudent look. Don't look at me. Why would you even assume I would do anything so juvenile as to turn this into a spectator sport for everyone to see? Oh, right. No, I totally get it. Still offended though. Noted, Kakashi responded dryly. I don't care about these people. If they want to see me beat you with their own eyes, then let them, Sasuke smirked cockily. Naruto had already turned to the still gathering audience, squinting his eyes moronically. Well, what do you know? Everyone's here. Don't ignore me, idiot! Sasuke demanded. Kakashi let out a sigh and shook his head, glancing once more to the audience. From the looks of it, people were taking bets. I wonder what the odds are, the scarecrow mused under his breath. The Jonin knew just how much Sasuke had improved since the Chunin exam, but he could only guess the extent of Naruto's abilities. Jiraiya had merely hinted at how much the Jinchuriki had improved, so he didn't quite know what to expect. Alright, just to make sure, we'll go over the rules again. Naruto and Sasuke simultaneously groaned at that. Amongst the crowd, Sakura glared daggers at Ino, who seemed to be thoroughly enjoying herself. Inobuta, why did you have to be such a gossip? I told you about this to make conversation. I didn't tell you so you could go ahead and tell everyone else. Oh, relax. Ino waved away her ire dismissively. You know how quick word travels around here, especially when you're the one spreading it, Sakura hissed accusingly. Now Kakashi-sensei is going to be angry at me and Sasuke-kun. He hates crowds. Who cares? Kiba joined in loudly, to which Akamaru yelped in agreement. Naruto's going to get his ass kicked. I'm sure this is something everyone wants to see, right? It will be an interesting match, that is certain, Shino added in his usual monotone voice. Who will win, I do not know. Sakura let out a hopeless sigh as Teen Guy and the rest of the genin started to join in on the discussions. There was no way in which this could end up well. The loser of this match would undoubtedly be humiliated and hate her for making it public, unintentionally or not. And not to forget Kakashi's punishment for all of this. I hate you, Inobuta. Lighten up. Ino insisted with an irritatingly carefree pat on the shoulder. I got 200 Ryo on Uchiha, one of the adults, a Chunin from the looks of it, called. His bet was immediately followed by similar calls. Yeah, me too. I got 300 on Uchiha Sasuke. Actually, I'm thinking of betting on Uzumaki. I've heard some good things about him, one Chunin said to his friend. Are you crazy? That's a sucker's bet. Well, he did beat that Hyuga kid. Yo, Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru greeted his former sensei as the other Jonin supervisors joined their students. Lee. Sakura lit up at the sight of wheelchair-bound Lee being pushed by Guy. Where have you been? I haven't seen you since Naruto's party. I have been going through rehabilitation thanks to Hokage-sama, Lee replied with an excited fist pump. The doctors told me I was unlikely to ever walk again, but Naruto-kun managed to convince Hokage-sama to personally examine me, and she is optimistic. The azure beast of Konoha promptly burst out into happy tears. I am truly grateful to Naruto-kun. We both are, my adorable student. Guy joined in with matching tears of happiness. Niji swiftly moved away from the two with a disgusted expression. Tenten sighed and shook her head. Here we go again. They can't mention Naruto or Hokage-sama without doing that. Naruto did that. Sakura could hardly believe it. She had heard rumors her former teammate had been involved in the retrieval of Tsunade, but this pretty much confirmed it. That's great, I'm happy for you, Lee. Shikamaru, how good are Naruto's odds? Asuma asked his former student. The Jonin reached into his pocket and took out a packet of cigarettes, but one glance from Kurenai made him stuff it back into his pocket with a sigh. Can't be that good, can they? Kakashi's been training Sasuke personally for a while now. Shikamaru took his sweet time picking his ear with his pinky and yawned. I'd say they're about even, he said to the collective shock of everyone nearby. Are you serious? Asuma rarely doubted his former student on anything. Kiba clenched his fist, digging his nails into the palm of his hands. Gee! There's no way he can be that strong. I already told you how pointless this argument is, Shikamaru replied, glancing at the other genin for a moment. Whose bright idea was it to spread the word anyway? Almost everyone looked to Ino, prompting Shikamaru to sigh. How surprising. Hey! At least we're all having a good time, Ino held firm with ill-found indignation. Rei-san, how have you been? Shikamaru looked over to Hinata and saw her conversing with the Rei whilst Haze stared shamelessly at Enko bouncing around as she gathered money for the bets. Didn't figure you two would be here, Shikamaru greeted his teammates. Came to support your boyfriend? How sweet, Ino chirped. He doesn't need my support, Rei replied firmly with a cold stare aimed at the younger Kunoichi. But yes, why is that girl? A nearby Jonin asked. What are you doing with that boy anyway? Your parents must be ashamed, Asuma said warningly, to which the Jonin responded with glaring at Asuma before stalking off. What was that all about? Shikamaru asked Asuma, giving him a look his sensei knew all too well. Nothing, Kurenai interjected. Uzumaki must have pulled a prank on him once. Maybe, but why would he be so? You were saying, Rei-san? Guy interrupted pointedly, addressing Rei to change the subject. Shikamaru picked up on the glances between the Jonin supervisors. Am I missing something? There's definitely going on. While I obviously support Naruto, he won't need it, Rei stated bluntly. Ino glared at the older Kunoichi for the remark. Is that so? Yes, Rei answered simply. Why is that, Nakamura-san? Sakura tried diplomatically. Because there will be no winner, Irika answered as he joined the group. No winner, huh? Asuma repeated, to which Irika nodded confidently. Makes sense, the chain-smoking Jonin agreed easily. How does that make sense? Kiba asked, lost on the implications between the senior shinobi. Just watch and see for yourself, Kurenai told her student. They're about to begin. Naruto vs. Sasuke. Kakashi slid the orange book in his pouch and looked left and right to both fighters, resigning to the fact it was out of his hands now. Okay then, I'll ask one last time, are you ready? Both Naruto and Sasuke nodded, not having once let up their fighting stances. Kakashi had to admit, even he didn't know what to expect from this match. In the past Sasuke had always been several steps ahead of Naruto, but he had changed, both of his students had. Sasuke was exceedingly fast and trained in the basics of Guy's strong fist style, which complemented his speed with powerful blows, while Sasuke was incapable of using the advanced techniques of the strong fist, which was made for taijutsu specialists trained to withstand the extreme bodily trauma. The genin brought in elements of the Uchiha clan's intercepting fist. 1. A fighting style centered on the Sharingan and based on interception, neutralization and precise retaliatory blows. Sasuke took the strong fist and intercepting and combined them to mold them into his own new fighting style, the intercepting strong fist. This new taijutsu style focused on speed and power much like strong fist, but retained the elements of the intercepting fist. The strong fist was all about offensive and the intercepting fist about the defense. The intercepting strong fist allowed both, but could only work with the Sharingan activated, thus limiting the time it could be used. Naruto will have to avoid confronting him in taijutsu, Kakashi thought with a glance to the blonde, whose taijutsu was less impressive. Naruto's taijutsu wasn't style-based in any sense. He used some of the academy-taught taijutsu when it suited him, but generally went with whatever the situation required, be it boxing, grappling moves, powerful kicks or bastardized strong fist moves. To the untrained eye, it would seem Naruto was an uncontrolled brawler, but in reality, his fighting was more controlled than it appeared to be. It made up for grace and speed with power and diversity. Adding to that, Unlike Sasuke, Naruto used at least 2 blades, a Kodachi and Tanto, of which he only carried the latter on him at the moment. With enough proficiency, Kakashi believed Kenjutsu could very well balance the scales. When it came down to ninjutsu, Kakashi would have given the favor to Sasuke due to his Sharingan, but with all the training Naruto had gotten under Jiraiya, Kakashi was hesitant to make that assumption, thus it remained a wild card. Genjutsu was unlikely to be even thought of by either of them, given the fact they both heavily relied on ninjutsu and taijutsu. But if it did come down to it, unless Jiraiya taught Naruto how to break genjutsu, he was in trouble. All in all, the two were evenly matched. Kakashi looked once more at both teenagers before making a chopping hand motion and jumping back several feet. Begin! No sooner had he said it, did the fighting begin. Sasuke didn't waste any time and rushed at Naruto with greater speed than that he had shown during his match with Gaara. Naruto had no illusions about his odds in taijutsu and decided to stick with countering moves and ducked under Sasuke's punch and retaliated with a sweeping kick Sasuke jumped over. Too slow. Sasuke smirked as he disappeared and reappeared behind Naruto. Shunshin? Naruto exclaimed in surprise as he haphazardly threw up his shin to block a bone-shivering kick. Refusing to let out a yelp of pain, Naruto went with the momentum and rolled on his shoulder, and got to his feet quickly, aiming a high kick against Sasuke's guard. A mistake as Sasuke smirked knowingly and brought up his free hand in a fist. Naruto realized his error just in time to hold up a cross-shaped guard and took the brunt of the powerful punch as he flew backwards, flipping mid-air and coming to a skidding crouch. Fuck, that hurt, he gritted his teeth, trying to ignore the stinging sensation in his forearms. His taijutsu is even better than when he fought Gaara. And he's so fast. I can't let him dictate the pace or I'm done. Sasuke took a moment to pause and smirk arrogantly in the blonde's direction. A second later he was off once again in a burst of speed, closing in on Naruto in the blink of an eye, only to disappear again. You cannot keep up with me with eyes like yours, Naruto, showy bastard, Naruto growled with a glance to the crowd. He wasn't about to get his ass kicked in front of all of these people. There was no way he would let that happen. Go, Sasuke-kun! Ino punched the air as she cried with excitement. Kiba couldn't be more pleased, sneering at the sight of Naruto as he struggled to keep up. I told you he didn't stand a chance. Luck won't save him this time. Akamaru barked in agreement as his master rubbed a nose under his finger. This will be over in seconds. None of the Jonin sensei made any comments, though they had to admit it didn't look too good. Shikamaru wasn't as convinced. Don't count him out just yet, the perpetually lazy genius yawned. I wouldn't do that either, Hayes agreed, to which Ray gave a nod. Naruto's a lot stronger than he looks. Besides, he hasn't even used his ninjutsu yet. I agree, Niji concurred to general astonishment. Uzumaki has surprising tenacity even when the odds are stacked against him. Speaking from personal experience? Kiba jabbed mockingly with a sneer. Niji glared at Inuzuka with unveiled disgust and ire. Watch your tongue, dog, the Hyuga threatened. Kiba flinched as soon as Niji made eye contact. Even Akamaru whimpered. Cut it out, Asuma commanded with a thoughtful glance to Kurenai. Matching Sasuke in taijutsu was definitely out of the question. Naruto was certain of that a minute into their friendly match. Sasuke was faster, stronger, and his form was much better. While he had yet to land a single solid blow, Sasuke had gotten over a dozen, picking his defenses apart with ease. Damn it, Naruto gritted his teeth, lashing out with an impulsive kick. Sasuke jumped over it effortlessly, appearing as though he could fly with the altitude he was reaching. This is what would have happened if you faced me during the Chunin exams, he claimed arrogantly. Yeah, and exactly how were you going to get past Gaara to do that? Naruto shot back as he slid into a defensive stance. At least I beat my opponent before I did your work for you, dick. It felt good to get that one off his chest, and it felt even better to see the Uchiha's reaction to it. Sasuke clenched his fists at the remark, raising them with an angry snarl. You're going to regret that. In an instant, he vanished by the use of Shunshin and reappeared next to him and surged forward in a fluid motion, but Naruto saw him coming this time. In his anger, Sasuke hadn't given his plan of attack any thought, and rather than attacking from blindsides he charged head-on, essentially surrendering himself to Naruto's mercy, who capitalized on the opportunity by kicking the earth, channeling his chakra to raise a bump in front of Sasuke's feet to trip him up and lose his balance. As a result, Sasuke literally dropped on Naruto's fist, who turned his heels and launched the Uchiha with incredible force backwards. Sasuke bounded painfully across the earth but managed to regain a foothold, skidding back several feet as he came to a stop sporting a bruise on his cheek. Chi! Angered, he resumed his previous strategy and dashed in a zigzagging pattern, not once allowing himself to become predictable as he darted around the blonde. "Come at me and fight, coward," Naruto taunted as he struggled to keep up with his former teammate's speed. "Shut up!" Sasuke charged at Naruto, who turned around, going on the defensive as they exchanged blows. "I haven't even warmed up yet," he claimed as he suddenly ducked and turned with Naruto's fist, throwing him over his shoulder and into the ground. The wind knocked out of him. It took Naruto a moment to regain his bearings, and by the time he did, Sasuke had already jammed his knee on his left elbow and tried to pin him down as he drove his fist downwards in a punishing blow. Naruto kicked up his leg for it to shift his weight, and shoved away Sasuke's wrist, and proceeded to try a half-scissor strangle hold. The two continued to struggle as they grappled for control. Naruto seemed to be directing the clinch as they got up. He forced Sasuke in a neck hold and repeatedly battered the Uchiha's forearms with his knees. After the fourth or so blow, Sasuke gripped onto Naruto's leg and pushed him back with his shoulders, allowing him space to hurl the blonde into the sky, the perfect setup for his Shuriken. Catching on to what Sasuke was trying to do, Naruto spun in the air and directed both palms to his side as the raven-haired genin appeared behind him, channeling a wave of chakra. Repusho! Two thick gusts of air blasted from his palms and launched Naruto off Sasuke's course. "Interesting," Kakashi commented from the sidelines. "Using air streams for propulsion. You can fly?" Sasuke bit out as Naruto settled about 20 feet above the ground. Naruto released the jutsu and touched down lightly, shaking his head. "At this point it's more like levitate," he clarified. "I haven't gotten it down to the point I want it, but it's still pretty cool, huh? I call it the Sui Shinsho. It takes a crap ton of chakra though, since my chakra control isn't all that great, so I can't really use it often," he admitted offhandedly with a shrug as he resumed his fighting stance. "Don't look so surprised, Sasuke-chan. You haven't seen anything yet." "Neither have you," Sasuke shot back, reaching for his kunai holsters on both thighs. Sasuke chucked the kunai at Naruto in rapid succession, aiming them around his feet first, and then later at his actual body to limit the areas the blonde could mobilize to. As the projectiles soared his way, Naruto reached for his tanto with one hand, holding it in reverse grip as he deftly deflected the blades. "Get real!" As if something like would work against, Naruto caught onto his error just as he deflected the last kunai and noticed the ninja wire tightening around him. "Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu!" Sasuke flashed through a string of hand seals and spat a massive fireball. Kakashi looked as though he was about to intervene but relaxed his posture once Naruto sank through the ground seamlessly, and reappeared next to Sasuke. Naruto thrust forward his free hand as he emerged from the ground, directing a chakra-laden wind gust. Over the past few months he had mastered the Repusho to such a degree it was truly on another level. His output was more than enough to blast Sasuke off his feet and send him hurtling through the air only to stop as he bounced painfully off a tree. Naruto went through another string of hand seals and took in a mouthful of air to follow up on his counterattack momentum. "Doria Taiga!" He spat out a body of instantly hardening mud that enveloped Sasuke against the tree in an effort to settle the spar quickly. However, it was for naught as Sasuke used the Kawarimi to switch with the fallen tree branch. Naruto gritted his teeth, unable to resist the creeping smile coming to his face. He was having fun. Sasuke, on the other hand, was furious. He was displeased with the fact Naruto had all but overtaken him in their match. "Katon," Sasuke began as he went through a set of hand seals which alarmed Kakashi enough to warrant a reminder. "Remember, easy on the ninjutsu. You're not out to kill each other, Sasuke." Sasuke ignored Kakashi and spat a jet of fire at Naruto, who, recognizing the hand seals, had already bolted for the lake and dived inside with a chakra-enhanced leap. "Ryuka no Jutsu." As the fire came bearing down, Naruto finished the last seal of his jutsu and erected a massive wave of water around him, mentally patting himself on the shoulder for having taken the time to master the water encampment wall technique as it easily reached 30 feet above surface. "Suiton, Suijin Hiki." Kakashi let out a sigh of relief as the water and fire jutsu collided, causing a thick volume of steam to obscure his view. "Not bad, Naruto." Using the steam to mask your movements, Kakashi thought as he shoved his headband up. Sharingan eyes spinning wildly, Sasuke scanned the lake for any movements but found none. "Chi!" Gritting his teeth, the Uchiha decided against going into the fog. Naruto was far too unpredictable for him to risk it, leaving him with no choice other than to wait it out. Oh, that Uzumaki brat just flew, didn't he? I can't believe it." Kiba clenched his fists tightly as he eyed the ongoing fight between his former classmates. "I knew Sasuke was on a level above us, but Naruto, he's just as strong." The Ninken user turned to Shikamaru and the other members of Team 312 present. How the hell could he have improved this much? He barely beat me last time. Hayes shrugged, casually leaning his head back into his hands. Don't ask me, I didn't know him before he was assigned to our team. None of us did, except for Shikamaru. The Chunin swordsman looked to Shikamaru as though he expected the Kagemain user to have the answer. I don't know either, Shikamaru said to everyone's disappointment as he continued to pick his ear. You'll just have to ask him. Hey, I made up my mind, I got 200 on Uzumaki. Yeah, me too. Out of the corner of his eyes, Shikamaru spotted Rei smiling to herself. Shaking his head with a smile of his own, he redirected his attention to the fight. Naruto remained several feet under surface, holding his breath and arms crossed. Sasuke's really going for it. I can't afford to hold back anymore, Naruto decided with a frown. If Sasuke wasn't going to pull any punches, then why should he? Sui Shinsho, Naruto thrust his palms towards his feet, propelling himself out of the water like a torpedo. By now the steam should have blown over. The moment Naruto erupted out of the lake, he was forced to redirect his wind propulsion and adopt evasive maneuvers as Sasuke released a hail of tiny fireballs, vaulting and cartwheeling alongside Naruto's direction. Hozenka no Jutsu. Naruto could already feel the strain of the propulsion palm on his wrists. The chakra was more or less a non-issue when using his original technique for evasive action, but it sure did smart. Of course he wasn't about to show it. Naruto relinquished the Sui Shinsho on one hand to eject two shuriken from his ninja wire setup attached to his wrist, and sliced the air as he flung the projectiles, lodging them mere centimeters from Sasuke's foot. Though they missed their target, Sasuke was distracted for a split second nonetheless, allowing Naruto a chance to touch down and ready himself to submerge into the ground when necessary. Though it wasn't as Sasuke realized his loss of momentum and ceased his hail of fireballs, panting but smirking confidently nonetheless. Running out of steam, Sasu? Naruto taunted. His own chakra reserve was so vast he hadn't even begun to tap into it, whereas Sasuke needed a breather. If he wanted to, he could simply outlast the Uchiha for as long as it took, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to beat the arrogant number 1 rookie with his own 2 hands, and he wanted to do it facing him head on. Doria Taiga! Naruto shot of another sizable volume of mud, a futile attempt as Sasuke dodged it effortlessly with his superior speed. You've improved, but you're still not on my level, Sasuke stated confidently. He even had the nerve to assume Rock Lee's pose, resting one arm on his back and extending his hand with the other. Kakashi has been training me nonstop since you left. Every day I've grown stronger. There is no way you can win, you're full of shit. Naruto's voice took a steely tone of barely restrained anger. He glared at the Uchiha prodigy. What? Sasuke demanded. Naruto clenched his fist momentarily and pointed angrily at him. You actually still think you're better than me? Don't be ridiculous. You used to be better than me, Sasuke, I'll be the first to admit to that, but that was then and this is now. I'm not the same guy I used to be, so don't look at me as if you're not even trying. Whatever you might think of yourself, you're not in a league of your own, not anymore. Sasuke sneered at Naruto. I'm going to show you exactly just how much beneath me you are. Sasuke burst forward with an unprecedented surge of speed, throwing back his arm as collided with the blonde. Much to his immense surprise, Naruto managed to keep up, more out of reflex than anything. The blonde ducked under Sasuke's punch and drove his fist into his former teammate's gut with enough force to cause him to lurch over and gasp as the air left his lungs. Naruto wasn't done yet, and he went through several back flips to gain distance only to go through a set of motions in which he butterfly twist, extending both his palms directly at Sasuke. Repusho, the amount of chakra he channeled into the jutsu ensured he conjured an incredibly powerful gust of wind that rocketed Sasuke off his feet and into a tree with enough force he spat blood upon impact. On the sidelines, Kakashi tensed ever so slightly, though it didn't look like he was going to intervene as Sasuke slid down the bark. Beneath you, huh? Naruto snarled at his former teammate. Not anymore, Sasuke. Tasting the coppery taste of blood, Sasuke picked himself and wiped the blood off his mouth. You're nothing. Sasuke rushed forward to engage the blonde in taijutsu. As angry as he was, he still could think logically. As they exchanged blows, Sasuke got in considerably more than Naruto, but the blonde took the pain without so much as grunt. Raw anger consumed them as they smashed their fists on one another, refusing to let the pain get in the way of this. Kakashi subconsciously clenched his fist tightly as the sight of his students going at it. If the look in their eyes was anything to go by, they hated each other. Something had changed between them. Naruto once regarded Sasuke as a rival, someone he wanted to be like, to surpass. But so much had changed in the past few months. He had grown much stronger and versatile in general, and while Sasuke had certainly improved, it wasn't at the same speed his rival had. If you could only get over your inferiority and superiority complexes, Sasuke, you could be much more than this. Sasuke made a circling dash in an attempt to catch the blonde on his side, but Naruto was on him and followed the raven-haired genin's movements with his ninjutsu rather than try to compete with speed he didn't possess. Mizurappa no Jutsu, the jet-off water crashed into Sasuke's legs, flooring him and hurling him backwards several feet, although Sasuke recovered gracefully, bounding from the ground with a single handspring and settled into a crouch, his hands already ending on the tiger seal for another fire jutsu. Hozenka no Jutsu, Naruto jerked aside his head as one ball of fire narrowly streaked past his head, singeing a few stray hairs before it went out against a tree, covering it in soot. He gritted his teeth as he backpedaled, darting left and right as he dodged the rapid onslaught of fireballs continued. He's starting to lose his edge, he noticed as the Uchiha's accuracy began to drop. He tested his theory by aiming a lone kunai at Sasuke, who dodged it slower than anticipated. "You're slowing down, Sasuke-chan," Naruto taunted with a provocative grin. "What's the matter? Are those pretty eyes putting too much of a drain on your chakra?" Though all he got from the jab was a scowl, Naruto could tell he struck a chord. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, 20 Naruto clones appeared with puffs of smoke, each of them wearing the same identical grin. Sasuke tensed up noticeably, his eyes widening slightly as though he had forgotten about that particular jutsu. "That bastard, he's not even going to attack," Sasuke hissed as the clones attacked whilst Naruto remained standing where he was, crossing his arms, seemingly implying he wasn't good enough to face head-on. "I'll show him." Sasuke began to go through a particular string of hand seals that caused Kakashi's visible eye to widen. "Sasuke, no, Chidori!" The crowd went wild at the sight of the ball of lightning. Many of them had hoped to see it used. "There it is, Hatake Kakashi's original technique. It's over for Uzumaki now. Oh, this is getting serious," Asuma mentioned to the other jonin. "What is Kakashi doing?" The chain-smoking jonin reached for his packet of cigarettes, annoying the look Kurenai was giving him. Guy frowned in the direction of the fight but shook his head at the Sandame's son. "It is clear these youthful youngsters have bad blood between them. My eternal rival realizes it is best to let them fight it out now under his supervision, rather than let their youthful passion escalate any further." The taijutsu master gave a shiny, toothy smile in Lee and Niji's direction. "It wasn't too long ago when my cute students fought it out like this. But," he said as his tone turned graver, "admittedly, it wasn't quite as serious as this." Sakura glanced in Rei's direction, feeling somewhat awkward. Though she kept it to herself, Sakura felt guilty for looking forward to this spar between her crush and former teammate. She cheered for Sasuke in the silent confines of her mind to avoid offending Rei. But now the spar turned into an all-out fight. The Rosette felt ashamed. How could she cheer for either to win? Sasuke was her crush, but Naruto was her friend, one that had saved her life at that. Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru looked to the bearded jonin as the crowd got rowdier. "Kakashi-sensei looks like he'll need your help in a minute." Asuma lit his cigarette and let out a puff of smoke. "Looks like it. Let's go, Guy." "What are you talking about, Shika?" Kiba looked to the shadow user, unable to grasp what was going on. Rei answered before the Nara could. "This is about to get out of hand." Sasuke drove the Chidori through the ground as he charged ahead, easily dispatching the shadow clones as he streaked past them. Evidently his mastery of the technique had improved by leaps and bounds, as he no longer needed to make direct contact to cause damage. "Naruto, too can play at that game." Naruto roared as he held out his right hand and charged his chakra. It became visibly as it formed into a sphere in his hand. He charged ahead, readying his Rasengan as they were about to collide. Sasuke, just as the two neared each other and thrust forward their respective technique, Kakashi, Guy and Asuma appeared between them. Naruto's eyes widened. What were they doing? He couldn't possibly stop his attack now. Shit! I can't stop myself. Fortunately Guy could. The jonin reached out with speed far beyond that of the blonde Chunin, gripping his Rasengan brandishing wrist as he turned and hurled Naruto in a completely different direction with ease. Simultaneously, Kakashi redirected Sasuke's attack in the opposite direction. Ga! Naruto crashed through several trees, shredding through them as he used the Rasengan to minimize damage. He finally came to a stop after 7th or so tree and picked himself up, a furious expression on his face. What the fuck was that? Naruto flew upwards with propulsion palms, unaware of the fact the adrenaline masked the strain in his wrists. He cancelled the jutsu midair and landed and crouched to see Sasuke pick himself up from the rubble he created. If he hadn't been so pissed, he would have been quite pleased. Sasuke pierced only 5 trees with his Chidori. Kakashi-sensei, it was a mistake letting you fighting after all, Kakashi said as he looked at Sasuke with disappointment, giving Naruto the same look as he turned to him. You went from a friendly match to a serious one, just like I feared. Naruto clenched his fists. He so badly wanted to say voice his indignation, give reasons why it wasn't his fault, but he knew it would just make him look petulant, just like the way he used to be. I'm out of here, turned to head into the forest but found Asuma in his way. Strangely enough, the Jonin gave him a look of understanding rather than disappointment. It's fine, Asuma. Let him go cool off, Kakashi told his colleague. Asuma stepped aside and Naruto continued his stride without another word. He heard Sasuke shout, "Let me go," at Kakashi and other voices, but he was too angry to care to look as he stomped off. Fuck this, Naruto charged an immense wave of chakra into his palms and blasted away like a jet, disappearing over the treetops. Kakashi, want me to go after him? Guy offered. I'll deal with him later. Kakashi followed his flight till it left his sight, still somewhat surprised he didn't get any arguments. The copy Nin turned to Sasuke, for whom he reserved his greatest disappointment. I taught you that technique to protect your comrades, not to use it against them. He released the genin, who simply glared at him and said nothing. When will you learn this anger of yours is your greatest enemy? Sasuke could only glare at his sensei whilst doing his best to ignore the stinging sensation in his shoulder. A part of him had wanted the evil sealing method to fail. He longed to feel that surge of power, that euphoric rush he got from using Orochimaru's cursed seal. That was intense. Hayes whistled, breaking the silent tension. Kiba swallowed thickly, still in disbelief of what he had just seen. Those two, they were trying to kill each other. Cha! Who knew Naruto was that strong? Ino shared the dog user's astonishment. Shikamaru frowned at Ino, clearly irritated by her actions. You do know this probably wouldn't have been as bad if you hadn't blabbed, right? How so? Ino demanded, just as irate as her former teammate. You added the pressure of public humiliation because you couldn't keep your mouth shut, Shikamaru pointed out. Consciously or not, Naruto and Sasuke were aware of that, and were fighting more seriously because of it. Sometimes even Shikamaru lost his cool. Ino's careless tended to be what set him off. As if you weren't troublesome enough. Hey, lay off of her, Kiba shouted at him with a raised fist and a snarl. How was she supposed to know? Enough! Kurenai intervened with finality. What's done is done. Asuma approached the group as he lit another cigarette, much to the Genjutsu mistress' annoyance. Looks like you were right, the Jonin said, looking to Irika. The Chunin Academy instructor didn't look too happy about it though. What possessed Sasuke to use that jutsu? He's been focused so much on his training lately. I guess he couldn't cope with the fact Naruto was a lot better than he expected, Sakura offered, knowing her insight on the matter wasn't an excuse, but trying anyway. I'm not saying he was justified. Good, because he isn't, Rei asserted with level-headed calmness. She was remarkably passive for someone who had just seen their boyfriend nearly get killed. And neither is Naruto, she added before anyone could comment. They were both being stupid, taking a friendly match this seriously. You're right, Nakamura-san, Sakura agreed, wanting to be as mature as Rei was about the situation. I just hope this doesn't ruin their friendship. Rei nodded in her direction in a seemingly approving fashion, though she didn't voice it. Kiba looked around the group with a question of his own. What was that technique Naruto used anyway? I've never seen anything like it. That would be the Rasengan, Asuma clarified as he exhaled a large puff of smoke. Kurenai looked at her lover with a shocked look on her face. You're not serious? Konoha's Genjutsu mistress was rarely surprised by anything, and thus the junior shinobi looked to Asuma for answers. The Rasengan, Sakura said aloud as she recognized the name. A moment later her eyes widened as she remembered where she had heard of the name. That was the Yandame's signature jutsu, wasn't it, Asuma-sensei? That's right, Asuma confirmed, somewhat impressed with the Rosette's knowledge. How Naruto got his hands on that one though. Hayes turned to Rei as she walked off while the others began to talk amongst themselves. Where are you going? The swordsman asked her. I'm going to check on him, Rei answered without breaking her stride. It's best I go alone. I don't think he wants to be around another crowd now, she added as Hayes was about to follow. Kanahigaku Riverbank. Itachi came to a stop as his partner turned into the direction of concealed ANBU operatives. Right on time, Itachi-san, Kisame spoke at a low tone so only his partner could hear. I believe it's time to get started? The swordsman gripped his sword's hilt tightly, a feral grin on his blue, finned features. It would appear so, Kisame, Itachi agreed as he felt his partner begin to unleash his monstrous chakra. As expected, they immediately came to investigate our chakra signatures. Itachi held onto his straw hat just as Kisame swung his massive sword with enough force to shift the winds. Come on out! Kisame challenged openly with a boisterous laugh. The former swordsman of the Hidden Mist assumed a lax stance, resting Samahata on his shoulder, but no less ready to do combat. Half a dozen ANBU dropped out of the surrounding trees, crouching in circle around them. Only 6 of you? I'm insulted. None of the ANBU operatives gave any response to his obvious taunt. They were far too professional for such foolish acts. Do not get carried away, Kisame, Itachi reminded the former member of Kiri's 7 ninja swordsmen as he assumed a similarly lax fighting stance. And do not underestimate Konoha's teamwork, they are notorious for it for a reason. With Naruto, crack! Naruto scowled as he withdrew his fist from the tree he had just driven his fist through. He had probably broken a bone or 2 in his hand, but he didn't care. It would heal within seconds anyway. Damn it! He exhaled heavily as he felt the adrenaline rush leave his body. Damn Sasuke. Oh, how he wished Kakashi hadn't interrupted their fight. He would have shown that arrogant asshole exactly who was beneath who. I need to calm down. Things just got out of hand, he realized as he forced himself to look at it logically. There was no way Sasuke actually intended to kill him. They were friends, or at least they used to be. He didn't quite know where they stood now. Something had obviously broken between them. Sasuke's complexes definitely had something to do with it. That much was obvious. See you at the top, huh? He began to laugh for no particular reason. Maybe it was the ridiculousness of it all, or maybe it was because he knew why things had gotten so out of hand. He had surpassed Uchiha Sasuke. For as long as he could remember, ever since his first year in the academy, Sasuke was his goal, the one guy he wanted to overcome more than anyone. The prodigy of the famous Uchiha clan, the very same who didn't even look at him the first time they fought. Why did it make him feel like he had already reached his peak by surpassing Sasuke? And why did it make him feel so weak and angry? Naruto let out a deep sigh and sat down, leant against a tree and enjoying the coolness of the shade it provided. Chi! A stinging sensation continued to pulse from his wrists. He peeled off his plated, fingerless gloves and found his wrists to be red and bleeding. The Shueishinsho put too much strain on his hands and wrists with the constant output of chakra. The pain was manageable, but his hands were shaking so badly he could barely make a fist. Fuck, he swore as pulled the gloves back on as tenderly as possible. There was a rustle to his right, and he tensed for a moment, reaching for a kunai. Relax, it's just me, Rei said as she pushed past the brush and approached him. How are you feeling? A lot better now you're here. Naruto made some space for her to sit. I shouldn't have gotten carried away like that, he said as soon as sat down next to him. Rei looked at him and nodded. I agree, she said bluntly. You shouldn't have gotten carried away like that. His expression fell somewhat. But I can't say I blame you, she added with something resembling a smile. I can't believe I nearly used the Rasengan on him. Naruto held his head with such disappointment in himself, and an unpleasant feeling in the pit of his stomach. How would Jiraiya react if he found out he tried to use the Yandame's technique to cause harm to a Konoha shinobi? Jiraiya's going to kill me. Rei playfully nudged him in the side with her elbow to uplift his spirits. I do believe it was justified, given the fact your opponent tried to stab you with Sharingan no Kakashi's assassination jutsu. Maybe, Naruto shrugged, though he knew it would be a futile point to raise with the Toad Sage. Jiraiya wasn't big on excuses, but for her sake he kept that to himself. I'm surprised you showed up to watch, he admitted. Don't get me wrong, it was a hell of a motivator not to lose, but I'm surprised nonetheless. Rei shrugged with a small smile gracing her features. As juvenile as this was, I wanted to support you. You were probably the only one, Naruto grumbled under his breath, his mood turning foul once again. All those people, they came to watch me get burned, didn't they? Of course they did. It's not like he had done anything worthwhile to earn their respect, like protecting the village from a homicidal Jinchuriki. But oh wait, he did and they still couldn't care less. That's not true, Rei insisted with a forceful nudge and a light frown. Hayes, Shikamaru and those 2 in the green spandexes were supporting you. There were plenty of people that were betting on you too. Naruto looked up at the last part. That's surprising. It shouldn't be, you were amazing. Naruto reached for her hand and squeezed it softly. Thank you, he said in a whisper as she leant into him. He leaned in and kissed her, dipping his neck as he deepened the kiss for a few seconds. They sat in silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's presence. It wasn't that they had run out of topics of conversation already. but rather didn't feel the need to talk to keep each other entertained or in their company. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto looked up from his embrace. His eyes widened. No, this wasn't Sasuke. Who are you? He demanded as he suddenly felt an ominous sensation as he looked into the pair of Sharingan eyes. Would you please come with me? Itachi asked calmly. Chapter 14 Outclassed. With Naruto. Naruto was no stranger to fear. In his lifetime, he had experienced it more times than he could count. In fact, having grown up on his own, he had experienced more fear than the average child. The fear of solitude, the fear of responsibility, and the fear of being rejected and never to be acknowledged. All these fears and more were still fresh in his mind, and he was likely to never forget them. That was his burden. The fear of death, strangely enough, he had experienced only a few times in his life. The first time he had truly experienced fear of death was on Team 7's first C-ranked mission. The encounter with the Demon Brothers was not so much as terrifying as it was a wake-up call, a reminder of his own mortality, something he had never truly been aware of prior to the mission to Wave. He would have died then and there if not for Sasuke. The second time Naruto felt this kind of paralyzing fear was against Zabuza, though that was hardly a surprise. The fear he knew for Zabuza was unreal. He could practically taste the killing intent, but he got over of it and became stronger because of it. His most recent experience of fear of death was when he fought Sabaka no Gaara. While he had been in plenty of scary situations since, Naruto had yet to feel the same fear, until now. None other than Uchiha Itachi stood before him and Rei. The Nukenin looked frail, sickly even, but this did nothing to hinder the fear Naruto felt as soon as he laid eyes on him. Will you come quietly? Itachi asked again calmly as the shock settled in the blonde's eyes. The world suddenly began to distort and change colors before Naruto's eyes. He felt weak, tired and nauseated, but he refused to let it take him. Naruto fought as hard as he could to keep his eyes open, but it too hard, too difficult. As his eyes began to droop and his posture slouched, a sudden stinging sensation in his back vanquished his drowsiness. Suddenly his fatigue was gone and the world went back to the way it was before. Only now he was standing, stopping mid-stride as Rei removed her hands from his back. Genjutsu, Naruto whispered as he realized his error. Fortunately, Rei had disturbed his chakra with her own and dispelled it. What do you want from me? He demanded as he slid a kunai from the ninja wire mechanism on his left wrist, willing himself to look at Itachi's shoulders, away from those deadly eyes. I had hoped to avoid this, Itachi stated as he reached for his straw hat and cast it aside lightly, yet with enough force to embed it in a few inches deep in the bark of the nearest tree. Naruto swallowed thickly, glancing to Rei momentarily. She didn't know what to do any more than he did. What do I do? Fight? He instantly dismissed the foolish notion. This is Uchiha Itachi, he killed the entire Uchiha clan, there's no way I could take him on. Run! Rei grabbed his wrist and began to run to the right. Naruto went along with it immediately, overtaking her and directing her through the woods as they ran. They ran about 15 feet when a school of crows burst into existence before them and formed into Itachi. Another genjutsu? Naruto grit his teeth. No, it's a variant of the Shunshin. He's using crows to mask his movements. Rei supplied as they darted to another direction. Itachi remained where he stood for a moment, eyeing them passively as he could see the fear in his target's eyes, fear for the girl more than for himself. Elsewhere, Sasuke stalked through the forest, a seemingly perpetual scowl on his face as he did so. He had yet to fully cool down from the match and let out his anger on a nearby street, punching it just once to crack its bark. Flashback. Kakashi pulled down his headband to cover his Sharingan as he looked at Sasuke with clear disappointment in his eyes. Perhaps it was mistake teaching you that technique. Sasuke remained seated on the dirt, unresponsive to the comment. I taught you the Chidori to protect your comrades, not to attack them with it, Sasuke. When will you learn? Maybe you should teach better, Sasuke shot back with a scowl at his sensei. I've been training with you nonstop since the exams and I haven't improved at all. Naruto, he's gotten much stronger, he's catching up. Sasuke looked back down to the ground, picking at weeds as an outlet for his frustration. Catching up? Don't flatter yourself, Sasuke. It's beneath you. Sasuke looked up with confusion to his sensei. What? He's already stronger than you are, Kakashi stated clearly as though relaying the condition of the weather. You simply haven't realized it yet, or rather you have but refused to accept it. Sasuke grit his teeth, glaring daggers at the scarecrow-looking Jonin. That's impossible. I had him the entire match, did you? Are you forgetting the fact he barely used any ninjutsu against you? The Jonin chastised him. You were out of steam after a few minutes. Naruto didn't even break a sweat, and he was holding back the entire time. Accept the facts, you were outclassed. Sasuke opened his mouth to give an angry retort but caught the look of pity and disappointment in Kakashi's lone visible eye. Do you think I'm telling you this because it's amusing, Sasuke? It was a rhetorical question, so the raven-haired genin didn't reply to it. I'm telling you this because it is time you get over your anger and let go of your inferiority and superiority complexes. You need to fight for more than revenge. You need to stop letting your anger rule you. What do you know about my anger? What do you know about revenge, Kakashi? Sasuke demanded as he raised his voice. Don't pretend you know anything about me. Kakashi let out a sigh and shook his head slowly. The look of pity became only more profound as Genin screamed at him. Don't look at me like that. I don't want your pity, Kakashi. I need you to train me more seriously. I want to become stronger. You already disgraced the one technique I taught you, Sasuke. What makes you think I will trust you with another? Until you prove to me you can change and fight for more than yourself, I will not teach you. Kakashi turned on his heel and promptly left, leaving Sasuke to himself. Go apologize to Naruto. End flashback. Chi. Sasuke stuck his hands in his pockets and continued his stride as he searched for the blonde. As much as he hated to admit it, Kakashi was right about everything. He had taken it too far during their match and nearly killed the one person he could relate to, the closest thing he had to a friend, and for what? To prove that he was stronger? He hadn't been this disgusted by his own behavior since the time he nearly surrendered their scroll during the second stage of the Chunin exams. Kakashi was right about everything, and he had to go and find Naruto and apologize. Konoha Riverbank. Kisame was thoroughly enjoying himself as he swung his samahata like a bat, wielding its crushing weight against the last of the ANBU operatives, easily breaking several ribs and arm as he launched him across the dirt, down the cobbled bank and into the river. Kisame looked over to his partner and smiled. It was always a treat to see Itachi fight. The Uchiha skillfully dodged his attackers, slicing tendons and throats with a single kunai as he dispatched them one by one as though they were fresh out of the academy genin rather than A and B-ranked shinobi. There truly was no end to the gap between S-ranked shinobi and the ranks below them. Behind you, Kisame, Itachi pointed out calmly as the operative from before charged at the shark man, his broken arm hanging limp by his side. Ooh? Kisame turned to the operative and smiled menacingly as the masked shinobi held up a single-handed hand seal and began to glow bright blue. Suicide, huh? Kisame intercepted the ANBU with a single lunge of his blade, ramming it into the operative's stomach and instantly robbing him from his chakra whilst sending him flying a good 20 feet. I'm impossible! The operative exclaimed as he picked himself, coughing blood as he did so. My chakra. How did you dash? I thought you guys were above speech, Kisame mocked as he closed the distance between them in an instant and grabbed the ANBU by his throat. His prey was powerless to stop him without chakra, and Kisame took great pleasure in squeezing his windpipe and watching him squirm and kick his feet in desperation. Be done with it, Kisame, Itachi ordered sternly as he cast aside his bloodied kunai and readied another. It appears reinforcements are already here. Kisame followed Itachi's eyes and looked to feet and found them to overrun by vines he had not seen before. What is it? It only took a swing of samahata to make the vines disappear. Genjutsu? Itachi merely nodded and approached his blue-skinned partner and stood next to him. Asuma, Kakashi and Kurenai, along with a dozen or so of other Jonin and Chunin, touched down in prong formation, readying their weapons and jutsu. Uchiha Itachi, Asuma's voice betrayed his surprise. This is unexpected. The sentiment was mirrored by the majority of his comrades. Itachi turned to Kisame and nodded. Do as you please. Appreciated. Kisame readied his samahata and ran down the cobbled bank to the river and raised a massive water wall easily going 30 feet in the air. Suetun, Suikoden no Jutsu. A massive water shark leapt from the river and crashed into the group, taking down 3 Chunin in its attack and smashing its tail against a Jonin with its second. Kakashi looked to his right and saw 5 of his comrades charge towards Itachi whilst he rest went after Kisame. No, it was already too late. They barely got within 10 feet of Itachi when the Nukenin sped past them at a speed Kakashi couldn't hope to match himself. In the blink of an eye, Itachi dispatched the 2 Jonin and their Chunin subordinates, carving through them with his kunai like a hot knife through butter. And he did ever so gracefully. No wasted movements, no excessive force, they simply dropped like flies. Kakashi's eyes widened as his shinobi comrades fell to the ground, seemingly dead. His shock was replaced almost immediately with anger, and he charged at the Uchiha, intent on separating him from his partner. Chidori! Kakashi stabbed at Itachi, knowing he would miss, intentionally pushing him back further. Sharp chunks of concrete shot past Itachi's cold, calculative eyes. Kakashi was on him, aiming a kick. Itachi ducked under and swinging a back fist. The S-ranked shinobi caught with ease as he turned on his heel. "What are you after?" Kakashi had to ask. What was Konoha's most notorious Nuke-nin doing here? It was so unexpected, so insanely risky and random. No, Uchiha Itachi was a lot of things, but he's certainly not random, certainly not rash or out for revenge. He had to have a motive. But what? I do not see how that is any of your business, Sharingan no Kakashi. Itachi swung Kakashi like a rag doll, casting him into the river where he rolled over the surface. You managed to resist my genjutsu, impressive. Kakashi's lone Sharingan eye darted erratically in warning of an attack. Suitun, Suijin Hiki no Jutsu. In the nick of time, Kakashi erected a protective barrier against 6 water drills that erupted around him. He's fast. I didn't even see him do any hand seals. Itachi slowly began his descent down the cobbled bank and stepped onto the water at a leisurely pace. Kakashi took a hit to his pride, but he knew he better than to let that affect him. There was no way around the fact Uchiha Itachi was a superior combatant. He had to give it his all if he wanted to survive this, let alone win. Kakashi glanced to his comrades. His eyes widened as he noticed they were down to Asuma, Kurenai, and only 2 other jonin. You should never take your eye off your opponent. By the time Kakashi focused himself on Itachi, he found the Nuke-nin standing mere inches from him, staring impassively as though he already knew the outcome of their match. Hokage Tower. The doors burst open as Shizen pushed past them, rushing into the Godame's office. Tsunade-sama! She called loudly. Tsunade woke up with a start from her desk, a file stuck to her forehead and wiping drool of her chin. I was just resting my eyes. Upon noticing her assistant appeared distressed, the Hokage's expression became serious. What is it? Uchiha Itachi is in the village. What? Tsunade exclaimed loudly, to which Shizen could only nod. What's the damage? We have already lost an ANBU squad so far, Shizen reported dutifully, forcing herself to get over her own shock over the situation. I have received numerous reports Hatake Kakashi is leading several other jonin and chunin at the westernmost riverbank. Is it just Itachi? Tsunade asked as she raised from her desk and reached for her robe. Shizen shook her head. It appears Uchiha Itachi has brought along with him Hoshigaki Kisame, an S-ranked Nuke-nin from Kiri and former member of its elite. I know who he is, Tsunade said as she slipped on her robe. The most western riverbank is about 10 minutes from here. That'll take too long, Fetchkima's team. You intend to go out there, Tsunade-sama? Of course. Tsunade affirmed as though it was obvious. I am the Godame Hokage. This village is my responsibility to protect. I'll make an example of these 2. Now go, Fetchkinma. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Shizen turned and rushed out of the office. When Tsunade got like this, no one needed to be told twice. Secretly, she was a little excited. It had been far too long since she saw her teacher like this. Tsunade turned to the shadowy corner in her office. Tenzo, you're coming with me. Tenzo stepped out of the shadows and gave a dogmatic nod. With Naruto, dozens of crows burst into existence before Naruto, and Rei as Itachi appeared before them once more. You have nowhere to run, Itachi stated calmly as he slowly approached them. Naruto looked around him and found they were surrounded by a dozen clones. He could tell from experience they were shadow clones. 2 can play at that game. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds upon hundreds of Kage Bunshin surrounded the pair of chunin, obscuring Itachi's views. Naruto ignored the pain in his wrists and grabbed Rei by the hand, running off into a different direction. Just follow my lead, he whispered as the surrounding clones transformed into perfect copies of Rei. They ran through the forest as fire came bearing their way, destroying his clones with ease, though fortunately plenty pairs of Naruto and Rei clones got away. Please let him buy it, Naruto silently prayed as they ran amongst dozens of their copies. For a moment, Naruto felt his fear melt away. It looked as though Itachi had fell for it. It didn't last, however, as the Sharingan user flew past them, turning on his heel to backhand Naruto with enough force to lift him off his feet and send him bounding across the dirt. That was a good use of the Kage Bunshin, Itachi complimented offhandedly as Naruto picked himself up. It would have worked on anyone else but me, he added. You cannot escape these eyes. Naruto wiped the blood off his chin. You sound just like Sasuke. Fuck, that hurt. Itachi was deceptively strong. Oh? Itachi turned his head somewhat intrigued. Naruto had to ask out of pride. How did you know I was the original? Not even Neji and Sasuke could see through his clones. And yet Itachi picked him apart out of 300 perfect clone copies. You had one of your clones take the girl underground whilst you lured me out here, the opposite direction of which she went, Itachi answered. And now, one of my clones is with her. No harm will become her for now. Ray went up in smoke as Naruto spat blood on the ground. What do you want from me? I do not particularly enjoy going after weak prey, Itachi mused in his monotone voice, ignoring the question. I will not hurt her so long as you do not attempt to escape. Naruto could stare with widened eyes. Elsewhere, Ray panted heavily as she and Naruto were cornered by one of Itachi's clones. How did he know we're the real ones? Itachi flung his kunai faster than she could follow. A split second later Naruto fell to the ground clutching his throat as blood spurted from the wound. Before Ray had realized what happened, he disappeared in a burst of smoke. Akage Bunshin? As am I, the Itachi clone informed. Please do not move. I will have to hurt you if you do. With Naruto, Naruto clenched his fist, biting through the pain in his wrists. I don't understand. I've never met you before, what could you possibly want from me? Itachi gave no answer to his question, and simply stared at him. He hadn't even used his genjutsu on the few occasions Naruto slipped up and looked him in the eye. If you're going to kill me, the least you can do is give me an answer. There was no answer, but it didn't matter. The longer he held Itachi engaged in conversation, the more time he'd have for his wounds to heal. He could already feel the pain in his wrists lessening. In a few minutes they'd be as good as new. That cloak, Naruto pointed at the red clouds on Itachi's cloak. You're Akatsuki, aren't you? That is correct, Itachi confirmed, not in the least intrigued by the fact Naruto identified him as a member of the infamous International Mercenary Organization. There's no way I can beat you, Naruto admitted. You're faster than I am, you're stronger and smarter, there isn't a single area I have a shot at beating you in. I have as much of a chance at beating you as Snowball has at extinguishing the sun. Are you afraid? Itachi asked with a voice so devoid of any emotion it made Naruto shudder involuntarily and put on a mirthless grin. I feel like running, so I guess I am. He assumed a fighting stance and swallowed thickly as a bead of sweat ran down the side of his face. But that doesn't mean I'll go down without a fight. Interesting. If I'm going down today, I'm going down swinging. Naruto steeled his resolve. He was scared. He knew he had no chance of winning, but fuck it if he was going to die a coward. Katon! Chakra surged through his body greater than usual, enhanced by his adrenaline and desperation. Ryuka no Jutsu. Naruto puffed his chest and spat a wave of fire larger than he had ever produced before. He felt a scorching sensation in his throat, but he pushed past it, bearing down his flames on Itachi, who disappeared a split second before impact. Naruto could feel him before he saw him and cancelled his technique abruptly and dived to the ground as Itachi sliced at him with the kunai, nicking his arm. That son of a bitch! Naruto rolled on his shoulders and gripped the earth. Doton, Dorihiki! His earth wall erected just in time to shield him from a hail of kunai and shuriken. Gee! I just need to hold him off long enough for someone to notice. Naruto ran a hand over his bracer and raised it to parry Itachi's stab, batting away ferociously, desperate in his bid to stay alive for as long as he could. Naruto reached for his shuriken holster and chucked a pair at Itachi. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 2 shuriken became 200, soaring at his opponent, who skillfully deflected several and jumped back to dodge the rest. Futon! Naruto slid into a wide stance and thrust his palm at the shuriken as he redirected them at Itachi at even higher speed. Repusho! Itachi wasn't fazed in the slightest by the unexpected move, disappearing and reappearing several feet away in mere seconds. He was fast. He was so incredibly fast he made Rock Lee look like a snail. Adding to that, his Sharingan could predict Naruto's moves. It was like child's play for him. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto created 3 clones who charged at Itachi, tackling him as they began to glow. Go! He mentally screamed as the clones detonated. Boom! The shadow clone's combined explosion hurled him off his feet with a force so great it uprooted several trees nearby and formed a 10 feet deep crater in the earth, as wide as average house. Naruto caught himself midair and slid across the ground. It hadn't worked. There wasn't a single trace of Itachi, nor was he foolish enough to believe that would actually work in the first place. Still, while his attack was unsuccessful, the explosion was bound to attract attention. You are strong, Itachi acknowledged as he stepped into view from behind a tree, a crow on his right shoulder. In a few years you could truly become a monster. Naruto scowled at the remark. He didn't like being called a monster. Thanks for the compliment, he spat sarcastically. Okay, take a deep breath and calm down, Naruto, he told himself as he tried to take fear and anger out of the equation. They were only clouding his judgment. What is it you want from me? Back to stalling? Itachi came to a stop mid-stride only a few feet away. I don't want anything from you, Uzumaki Naruto. He didn't elaborate any further, much to the Jinchuriki's dismay. Then who does? He demanded loudly, frustrated with his situation, frustrated with his own weakness, and the fact he was powerless and alone and certain to die. You don't seem to be the type of person that kills people simply for the fun of it. Why are you here? Tell me, you know my younger brother, Uchiha Sasuke, Itachi said, once again ignoring his question. You were placed on same team as him under Hatake Kakashi. Naruto frowned with confusion. What of it? What do you think of him? It was the question Naruto had least expected, and for a moment he believed he had misheard Itachi. But the Nuke-nin clarified his question. Do you consider him a friend? It's a bit late to assume the role of a caring brother, don't you think, asshole? Naruto found his voice again, and with it, hatred for what Uchiha Itachi had put his friend through. What you did that night. Sasuke's the way he is because of you. For a moment, spanning no longer than a second, Naruto could have sworn he saw something. He wasn't sure what it was, or whether he was simply imagining it, but there was something there in Itachi's eyes. You know, Sasuke and I aren't the closest of friends, we never were, we always argue and fight. He used to beat me all the time and deep down somewhere I hated him for it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, so let me put it like this, your little brother is an asshole. But he added before Itachi could respond, seeing you're here, Naruto clenched his fist so tight his nails dug into his skin. It makes me want to tear you apart on his behalf. Throwing caution to the wind, he charged at Itachi with his tanto drawn, bounding into a leap as he stabbed at the S-ranked shinobi, turning his heel and following suit as Itachi dashed back, darting away as he easily dodged his futile attempts at stabbing him. Naruto felt a corrosive hatred for the man. He hated how outclassed he was, how weak he was in comparison, and how powerless it made him feel. In the back of his mind he could only imagine how much worse it must have been for Sasuke. If anything, this only made try harder. His anger for his own situation and that of his friend, as fractured as their friendship may be, it fueled the fire behind his movements like it was rocket fuel. After a few seconds of dodging, Itachi's hand surged forward and grabbed Naruto's wrist, exerting so much pressure Naruto felt as though it was going to break. One stinging sensation of pain was followed by another, and another and another as Itachi began to pummel him, punching and kicking him as he laid down a beating Naruto was too slow to dodge, too weak to fight back. Crack! There went another rib. Another crack followed, resounding from his nose as Itachi punched him in the face, holding him against a tree with one hand, easily lifted him up a few inches above the ground with his deceptive strength as he continued to rain punishing blows, all the while maintaining his unreadable expression and cold, calculative eyes. By the time the beating stopped, he could taste blood in his mouth, and he felt as though all the bones in his body were broken and 100 times heavier. And he was tired. He's so tired. By the end of it, he just wanted to sleep. He wanted the pain to take him and succumb to unconsciousness. Itachi lowered his fist and dropped Naruto to the ground, watching him intently as the blonde slid down the bark. A gleaming light in the corner of his eye caught his attention. Itachi turned and walked over to the source, finding it to be the blonde's tanto. Immediately noticing its age, Itachi held the short blade aloft and read the characters aloud softly. The will of fire shall illuminate the village. Itachi's face remained expressionless, unreadable, but his eyes changed ever so slightly as he stared the engraving as though the words were of some sort of profound meaning to him. A meaning his blonde victim had no way of understanding, a meaning only a few men and women in the world could understand. While his mind took him elsewhere for a moment, Itachi sensed a newcomer and looked to his right as a massive fireball came crashing his way, feeling its heat as it closed in on him. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. The earth shook as the Katon Jutsu drove to the ground, marring the earth with scorch marks and soot. Its intended target was long gone by then, of course, repositioned a safe distance away as Sasuke darted out of a tree, Sharingan eyes wide and blazing with a mixture of shock and rage. Itachi, Sasuke, the Nuke-nin responded calmly, not all visibly affected by the sight of his younger brother for the first time in years. What are you doing here? Sasuke didn't answer and instead began to rapidly weave hand seals. I should be asking you that. Chakra surged through his arm, converting to a spherical orb of lightning in his hand. Chidori, And what do you intend to do with Itachi Kakashi's technique? I intend to kill you! Sasuke roared, setting off with a burst of speed, wielding the Chidori like a spear attached to his hand. Itachi intercepted the technique, grabbing Sasuke by the wrist and forcing his own chakra into the technique. Sasuke's eyes widened as he felt his control over the technique disappear. Itachi flung him aside as it happened. The Chidori exploded in a storm of lightning, electrocuting Sasuke as he fell to the ground, screaming in pain. You are still far too weak to challenge me, little brother, Itachi stated matter-of-factly as he neared his younger sibling. A kunai soared through the air, narrowly missing the bridge of his nose. Itachi turned to source and found Naruto had regained consciousness. Itachi could see the damage he had dealt reverse before his eyes. Jinchuriki are truly troublesome individuals. You only need moments of rest to heal your wounds. The torturous current had ceased by the time Itachi glanced at Sasuke, who slowly picked himself up and resumed his stance. Do not get involved, Sasuke. I am not here for you. Don't tell me what to do! Sasuke screamed at him. He couldn't understand what was happening, why Itachi was here, and what his business was with Naruto, but how could he? All that mattered now was his revenge. Even if he would die trying now, he wouldn't have it any other way. He would rather die than run away again. Idiot! Naruto spat blood as he leaned against the tree. Why did you get involved? You should have gone and gotten help. Shut up! Sasuke looked from Itachi to the blonde, still confused and disorientated from his brief electrocution. What is going on? Why is my brother here? What does he want from you? Naruto's eyes widened as he saw Itachi aim the tanto at his younger brother. You idiot, keep your eyes on him. Dropping to a knee, he slammed his palm on the dirt and channeled chakra through it. Dorihiki! The earth wall shot up just in the nick of time, shielding his former teammate from the blade. Despite his appearance, Itachi clearly had significant physical strength. If his taijutsu wasn't a proof of that, the fact he nearly managed to pierce a foot-thick wall of earth with a casual flick was. How were they supposed to fight him? No, the more important question was how they were going to survive. Naruto hated this situation. He hated it more than anything, this sense of powerlessness that came with being utterly outclassed, by someone only 6 years his senior no less. What do you when you're faced with an opponent that just utterly owned you? What could you do? Think! Naruto mentally shouted to himself. For once your life, think this through. Come on! There has to be a way, some strategy, some angle. Fuck, what I wouldn't give for Shikamaru's brains right now. Have you come to realize the hopelessness of your situation? Itachi's expression betrayed no sense of emotion, not even superiority or condescension. He was genuinely curious from the looks of it. What do you do when faced with an opponent you cannot beat? I wonder. Naruto held back on his flippant remarks. Itachi was talking, and right now talking was good. Talking bought him time. Talking kept him alive. I guess there's no point in asking you what you want, is there? You've ignored my questions before. Do you stand and fight anyway? The S-ranked rogue shinobi continued. Do you run for your life, hoping that somehow you survive? I wonder what your answer is. Was he always this cryptic when you were younger? Naruto turned to his former teammate. Sasuke's clenched fist trembled uncontrollably. It was clear he wanted to fight, but knew it would be pointless, so his instincts kept him grounded. Brother, clearly he wasn't going to be of any help, Naruto realized. He couldn't exactly blame the guy, given the history of the siblings. Maybe if I summon Gamahiro or Gamabunta I can hightail it out of here, Naruto considered as the brothers continued to stare at each other without another word. No, he quickly decided against it. That bastard still got Rei cornered. He wasn't bluffing earlier. He'll kill her if I run. Go home, Sasuke, Itachi ordered. He wasn't interested in his younger brother, or at least not at the moment. Your lack of progression is disappointing. Disappear. I'm not going anywhere. The younger brother shouted as the earth wall fell apart, and the tanto dropped with muffled thud. Itachi took steps forward to his brother. Very well, he conceded, as he disappeared and reappeared mere inches from his younger brother. Itachi moved so fast, Sasuke didn't even have the chance to blink before he felt his brother's fist drive into his gut, taking the air out of his lunges. More followed, a hail of punches, strategically aimed to break him down, as painfully as possible while keeping him conscious. And even with his Sharingan, Sasuke was powerless. He couldn't even see them coming, much less defend himself, and as the blows continued to rain down, Naruto's eyes darted from left to right as he hurried his mind to come with a plan. Maybe now is a good time to collect rent. He gave it some serious thought, and as much as he disliked using power that wasn't his own, it was the only logical choice now. The Kyuubi's chakra would surely draw some attention if he used it, even if it didn't do much good for his odds. Itachi wasn't anything like Gaara or Sasaki. It would take more than what little power of the fox he could control to beat him, far more, but he didn't have any other ideas. He was out of ideas, out of clever tricks, not out of a lack of imagination but due to a lack of practicality. What was the point in trying to outsmart someone that was stronger than you? There was none. It was simply a wasted effort. He had no choice but to rely on the fox. His opponent was an S-ranked shinobi with a Sharingan so keen it could see his moves before he made them, a Sharingan mastered to such a degree it could distinguish him from thousands of perfect copies. Running away wasn't an option. Standing his ground and fighting back with everything he had, as foolish as it sounded, was, if I have an advantage on this bastard, it's that he's far stronger than I am and he knows it, so he won't retreat. I just have to make sure I go at him with everything I got from the start. Alright then. Raising his hands to shoulder level, Naruto gave it his all as he tried to emulate his experience against Neji and Gaara. You better be awake, fox, it's time to pay rent, he shouted as he slammed his palms together. Naruto's mindscape. Kurama's massive fangs parted in an ominous grin. You have some audacity to not come and grovel for my power, whelp. You better be awake, fox, it's time to pay rent. Naruto's voice rang through the mindscape. Kurama noted the desperation and urgency in Container's voice. Very well, he continued to grin as crimson, bubbly chakra escaped his cell. As per our agreement, real world, it worked, he could tell before he opened his eyes. Power, pure and euphoric power, surged through his body, altering his appearance as the fox's chakra settled. His hair grew longer and unrulier, fangs protruded from the corner of his mouth, and his nails grew as long and thick as that of an Inuzuka. The most prominent change was in his eyes, however, as the blue orbs were replaced by blood-red, slit eyes. No time to waste, Naruto decided as he summoned as much of the Kyuubi's chakra as he could. The sudden burst of red chakra caught the eye of both Uchiha brothers. Having pinned down his younger brother against the tree by his throat, Itachi turned to look over his shoulder, only to find Naruto standing next to him, rearing back his as he bore his fangs and split eyes in an angry snarl. "RUH!" Itachi held up a free palm just in time to block the attack, but the force behind it was so great he skid back several feet, a scrape on his hand but otherwise completely unharmed. Sasuke fell to his knees, gasping for air as he held his throat and drew air. Looking up, his eyes bulged at the sight of Naruto's spontaneous regeneration. "Your wounds? How is that possible?" "It's a long story," Naruto answered dismissively. "Get on your feet. A dojutsu?" Sasuke gasped again at the sight of the blonde's eyes. The shock ebbed away as soon as it appeared as he realized their opponent was still on his guard. "Naruto?" Naruto ignored him. He couldn't afford to answer any questions. The Kyuubi was being cooperative for now, but who knew how long it would last, how much of the fox's chakra his body could hold. With that in mind, Naruto charged at Itachi, fully aware of his position, of the fact it was do or die. There was no room for doubt or fear, only his determination would see to it he would survive, that Rei would survive, and fuck it, that even Sasuke survived. Shunshin! He dashed at his opponent as quick as lightning, punching at his face and of course missing, but following up with Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. It was a pointless effort, he knew, but right now it didn't matter whether he hit Itachi. He just needed to stay on the offensive, move the fight on his terms. Itachi easily dodged the flames on point-blank range, once again making it clear just how great the difference in speed was between them, but Naruto didn't care. There was no time to care about the little things. Itachi could fucking dodge his attacks while doing pirouettes for all he cared. He just needed to draw this out for as long as possible. And the bastard was behind him, surging his way, but Naruto saw him coming. He was tempted to use his propulsion palms but decided against it. That technique was too much of a double-edged sword to use, especially in a fight he was already losing, so he threw up his forearms in a defensive guard instead and coated them with his Doryu Taiga, hardening the mud to make sort of shield just in time. "You know, I really hate assholes like you," Naruto remarked as he rolled over his shoulders, having sustained minimal damage though Itachi broke through his guard. "If you want to kill me, at least have the decency to tell me why." Naruto formed another pair of hand seals and spat a stream of water. Mizurappa! For a second it looked like he had a hit, but Itachi disappeared, disembodied in a flock of crows that converged behind him. "Feel free to help out at any time," Naruto shouted at Sasuke, frustrated with his rival's absent-mindedness, aiming a kick backwards, causing the flock to scatter and converge in front of him again. Hold on, he thought as he noticed the glossy look in the Avenger's eyes. He's been snared by a genjutsu, damn it! When did that happen? Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several clones appeared and charged at Itachi, proving to be even less effective than he had hoped as Itachi dispatched them with a hail of shuriken. Mimicking his opponent, Naruto drew to shuriken and threw them at Itachi, weaving hand seals as fast he could as they soared through the air. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 3 projectiles turned into 300, slicing through the air, cutting down branches and entire trees as they all missed their targets. Itachi's Shunshin was incredibly difficult to read, what with the crows masking his movements to the point it was impossible to keep track of him. Snap out of it! Naruto dashed over to his genjutsu-stricken rival and pushed chakra through his chest. Wake up! Sasuke's eyes refocused and settled on him in angry snarl for a split second, but realizing where he was, his eyes snapped to Itachi's position. Listen, we're in some deep shit, Sasuke, Naruto snapped at him. I need you to quit your bitching and focus. Tell me where his Shunshin takes him, and we might stand a chance. I can't see it either, Sasuke admitted begrudgingly, digging his fingers in the palms of his hand. He's too fast. Bullshit. Naruto snapped at him with a pinch of panic in his voice. What happened to your before these eyes crap? You want to survive this? Then focus. Focus like your life depends on it, because it does. There was no time for sugarcoating. There wasn't any time for it, Naruto decided as he shot a kunai from his ninja wire wrist setup and coated it with chakra. He wasn't very experienced with chakra flow, but Hayes had taught him the basics at least. Itachi exploded in burst of crows once again as the chakra flow-covered kunai soared past him, and reappeared behind Naruto, backhanding the blonde into a tree. Quick on his feet, Naruto rushed again, punching and kicking wildly, turning on his heels as he matched Itachi's movements to best of his ability and continuously summoning more of the Kyuubi's power. His movements were sloppy and his attacks were more like feints, but at least he managed to keep up somewhat. For his part, Itachi continued to dodge and counter his kicks and punches, throwing retaliating blows whenever he was given an opening, all the while maintaining his cool, expressionless demeanor. Your desperation makes you easy to read, he stated, catching Naruto off guard, and punishing the Jinchuriki for his carelessness by punching him straight in the face with enough force to send him flying. He didn't fly far, however, as Sasuke caught the blonde midair and steadied him on his feet. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Of course, evading the fireball was far too easy for a shinobi of Itachi's caliber, but Naruto was back on his feet by then and charged at him with a set of dozen clones, jumping over each other, and weaving their movements in perfect synchronization in an effort to overwhelm him with numbers. Futile, Itachi remarked as he sliced through the clones with grace and precision neither of his young foes believed possible in combat. Chi! Naruto grit his teeth as Sasuke bought more time with another fire jutsu. Futon, Repusho. It was worth a shot to augment the fire with his wind chakra, though he was skeptical it would make any difference as Itachi would surely avoid the attack. We need a plan. Sasuke released the stream of fire and panted heavily. Stay out of this, he said as he glared daggers at Naruto. I am the one that will kill him. Sure enough, the Uchiha Genin went through a string of hand seals Naruto had become acquainted with. Don't bother, Naruto reached out and grabbed his nearest wrist. It's a waste of chakra. You need to run, he's not after you, at least not today. The notion didn't sit too well with Sasuke judging from the snarl on his face. Stay out of this. You can run if you're scared, I will kill him by myself. A pain, a white-hot, searing pain shot through Sasuke's body. What is it? Naruto sounded alarmed as Sasuke fell to a knee, clutching his shoulder in pain, letting out a silent scream. When did he? So it is true, Itachi mused out loud. You have been marked by Orochimaru's Juin, Sasuke. Juin? Naruto's eyes widened at the news. He had read a thing or two about curse eels in the literature Hiruzen had provided to him. Orochimaru? He repeated, sounding confused, though it was already dawning on him. Those marks from the time he fought in the preliminaries and against Gaara. When did Orochimaru place one on him? Sasuke breathed heavily as he reined himself in. This is nothing, he boasted with an inexplicable show of arrogance, as the seal began to pulsate dark energy. I'll kill you! He claimed with a psychotic look in his eyes and a grin so far from characteristic, Naruto could have sworn he was standing next to a stranger. Orochimaru's Juin is embedded with his own fall chakra, Itachi began explaining though none had asked. It was an odd sight, but Naruto didn't dare to interrupt. At least this gave him some time to think. His chakra? Naruto repeated to buy some time, though he could not deny his own curiosity. Why, if Itachi saw through his ploy, he didn't show it. Through embedding his own chakra into his victims, the Juin allows them access to incredible short-term power. The Juin increases strength, speed, durability and stamina, but it comes at a price. And what would that be? Naruto clenched his fists tightly. He had a good idea of what that price could be. Sasuke had definitely changed in the time he was away. He had always been an arrogant bastard, but he was never this unpleasant. In return for the power of Orochimaru's Juin, the hosts of the seals sell their souls to him. The more they use it, the more their minds are deteriorated. Over time, they become less and less of their former selves bound to this will. Some become apathetic, emotionless husks of human beings, and some lose themselves to anger and lose their sanity to psychosis. Naruto felt as though an anvil had just been dropped on him. It was starting to make sense now, the reason why Sasuke had changed so much. And this wasn't the first time he had seen it. No, he had encountered something similar to this before. I just want power. Even now, he remembered the deranged, psychotic look in Sasaki's eyes. Is there a way to remove the Juin? Mind your own business. Sasuke snapped as he got to his feet, still breathing heavily. The psychotic look on his face had disappeared and the pulsing sensation in his shoulder ceased. This is bad, Naruto thought, clenching his fist subconsciously. As if it wasn't bad enough I'm fighting Uchiha fucking Itachi, Sasuke is a damn time bomb. And Ray, damn it. What am I going to do? I can't keep pulling more of the fox's chakra. The crimson chakra that surrounded him earlier had become significantly dimmer by now. This wasn't going at all like he had planned it. He could demand more of the fox's chakra, but what good would it do? I'm too fucking weak. Elsewhere, Itachi's clone continued to stare at Ray with an unreadable expression as time crept by slowly. A slight yet sudden movement prompted the clone to remind the kunoichi of her situation, not by words, but a simple look. Ray caught it immediately, and lowered her hand away from her kunai holster. Clone or not, it was more than just observant, it was also incredibly sharp. Even without words, she knew it had her figured out already, and she knew it too. What do you want from Naruto? Ray asked for what seemed the 100th time. As expected, the clone didn't respond and merely continued to stare at her with those intimidating red eyes. You have no use for me, why not kill me? Again no answer, to which Ray grit her teeth. Never had she felt this powerless before. All she could do was stand in the same position she had been standing in since she was cornered. But what choice did she have? Compared to Itachi, she was an ant, no threat by any stretch of the mind. Even so, Ray thought as she slid into a peculiar fighting stance. I won't let him have his way and use Mai as some sort of hostage. That stance, the Itachi clone commented with a hint of surprise in his voice. So you are one of Danzo's tools. Konoha Riverbank. Kisame tore through his enemies with ease as he continued his rampage, surrounded by fallen shinobi and grinning madly as he fought in his controlled form of savagery, sparring none in his wake. His killer instincts, honed over a lifetime of battle, alarmed him of imminent danger, so the shark man turned and raised Samahata in a guard, just in time to deflect a kunai. You! Kisame's eyes narrowed as he recognized his opponent. How many years has it been? Ibiki asked as he jumped back several feet, touching down lightly as more reinforcements surrounded the former Kirinin. You're as ruthless now as you were back then. I was hoping I'd run into you, Kisame admitted with a feral grin. Samahata vibrated with excitement, sensing its master's hunger for blood. I still have to pay you back for last time. Ibiki merely shook his head with an emotionless expression. I am only the vanguard, Hashigaki. Your opponent is on her way. Kisame swung his blade to drain the chakra right out of a water jutsu headed his way and charged towards Ibiki. You'll just have to amuse me until then. I'm already here. Tsunade declared as she appeared in his way, throwing a straight right Kisame haphazardly blocked with his Samahata. What an honor, Godame-sama. Kisame jeered mockingly, only to realize Samahata wasn't shaking in excitement anymore, but rather shaking in pain. The shark man's eyes widened as he realized the depths of damage he had just avoided. Sasori was right. Tsunade cast aside her jacket and looked over to Ibiki. I take it Kakashi went after Uchiha Itachi? Yes, Hokage-sama. Ibiki confirmed with a nod, still marveling at the speed with which she intercepted the S-ranked Muknin from Kiri. Your orders? I'll take it from here, Tsunade ordered, turning her gaze back to Kisame. Ibiki, I need you go support Kakashi. Everyone else get back, you'll simply get in my way and he'll just absorb your chakra. Yes, Hokage-sama. Her shinobi responded in unison, morale skyrocketing at the sight of their Hokage taking the reins. Kisame swung Samehada a few times with renewed excitement. What makes you think I can't just absorb your chakra? Feel free to try, Tsunade replied as she raised her heel and dropped it to the ground with such force. The earth beneath her feet shot up in thick chunks, which she punched in his direction like massive earth bullets. It was merely a distraction, Kisame knew, but even so he had to deflect the chunks of earth, and much to his own surprise, the second he took his eyes off Tsunade, she was right next to him, rearing back her fist before she drove it into his face. Had he been a normal man, he would have likely died on the spot, his death taken clean off his shoulders. But instead Kisame went flying, painfully bounding across the earth, spitting blood as he did so, tightly gripping Samehada's hilt as he found his footing, resisting to urge to nurse the fat, purple bruise on the left side of his face. Incredible, she broke my jaw. You're a tough one, Tsunade noted, clenching and unclenching her fist as though she was just getting started. I've lost my touch. Samehada's hilt grew, snaking up to the shark man's wound, healing it almost immediately as it shared the chakra it had absorbed from the Konoha nin to heal its master. You throw quite a punch, Hokage-sama. And that was just a love tap, Tsunade replied as she set off in his direction again, moving even faster than before. Kakashi vs. Itachi. In combat, Hatake Kakashi usually had two big advantages over his opponents. The first was obvious, his Sharingan. With it, he could see his opponents' moves before they made them and make their techniques his own. The second advantage Kakashi usually had over his opponents was experience. While only in his late 20s, Kakashi had about 2.5 decades of service under his belt, during which he came across a great many powerful shinobi, fearsome techniques, and dire situations. This experience usually helped him greatly in combat, even against opponents with abilities he hadn't faced. Against Uchiha Itachi, Kakashi had neither of his usual advantages. Itachi's Sharingan was far superior to his own, and when it came to experience, Kakashi didn't have much of an edge, if any at all. While over a decade his junior, Itachi was thrust into the shinobi world at young age and had thus accumulated as much experience as he had, if not more, as Kakashi had no way of knowing what the rogue shinobi had been up to since his defection. Thus it came down to skill. It was simple, whoever was the strongest was the victor. Kakashi didn't think himself as prideful, but in most cases he knew he was more skillful than his opponents, even without his Sharingan. Uchiha Itachi, however, was not just any opponent. When it came down to skill, it was painfully obvious to Kakashi he was beat. And it showed as they fought. Fighting Uchiha Itachi was unlike any experience Kakashi had ever had. The complexity and the speed at which they fought was mind-boggling. As they clashed with taijutsu, they simultaneously used their Sharingan to fight one another in another playing field, casting and undoing genjutsu and simultaneously reading each other's movements and moving to counter, whilst dodging a stab of a kunai here and a hail of shuriken there. It was simply put exhausting. Kakashi knew he wouldn't be able to keep up forever. Obito's eye drained his chakra and the strain on his body slowed his movements. He was tempted to pull down his headband for a few minutes but dismissed the notion. It was outright suicide. They clashed once again, this time with kunai blades, pushing each other away as their eyes met. Itachi didn't budge, not even a little, betraying his frail appearance. Your skill with the Sharingan is impressive, Sharingan no Kakashi, for an outsider. Thank you, Kakashi replied as he reached for another kunai. Itachi stopped the sudden movement by grabbing his wrist. Allow me to demonstrate the true power of the Uchiha, Itachi said as he looked Kakashi straight in the eye. Itachi's eyes began to spin as they changed in shape, now looking like a three-pronged shuriken. What the Kakashi fell short on his sentence as he was suddenly taken into a world of black and red. Tsukuyomi, undisclosed location. The massive, thick metal doors leading to Root's main headquarters burst open with such force they fell of their hinges, followed by several Root operatives that went flying to the air. Danzo's lone visible eye remained closed as he held up a hand to 30 or so shinobi behind him in the poorly lit headquarters. Stand down, you are no match for him. Itachi's footsteps resounded loudly as he came to a stop, the shroud of orange and yellow chakra subsiding as his eyes fell on the man he came to see. Danzo, Uchiha Itachi, to what do I owe this pleasure? Chapter 15, Cruel Kindness, Earth Country. Jiraiya sat down on a bench by a quaint little tea house he came across on his way back to Konoha. As his tea arrived, delivered by a young girl, his eyes remained plastered to the scroll in his hands. The gears of war were in motion. He was so sure of it he could feel it in his bones. Maybe not now, Maybe not tomorrow and maybe not even for a few years, but Jiraiya could tell. He had fought in 2 of 3 shinobi world wars and he had fought on many battlefields since. He had fought on far too many. Kusa was up to something big enough that warranted a summit to which all shinobi villages outside of the Great Five with military power worth a damn to be invited. What are you up to, Sojin? Summits aren't your thing. Jiraiya pondered on the leader of Kusugakure for a moment. Sojin the Overlord, he was the kind of shinobi that came only once every few generations amongst the minor villages. A shinobi with such power he put even the elite of the Great Five to shame. Sojin was one of few that could go toe-to-toe with Hanzo the Salamander in his day. He was a powerful shinobi who led his village unchallenged, killing all those who dared to oppose him. Jiraiya didn't know the man personally, but with like all great shinobi, reputation was a good indicator of what kind of person he was. From what Jiraiya could tell, Sojin was cutthroat and ruthless, and dogmatic to a fault. He followed the shinobi codes to the letter, sacrificing any and all for the greater good of his village. Kusa no Kuni's daimyo was terrified of him, enough so to give him license to do as he pleased with his shinobi force. This was rather unusual, given the fact their daimyo's armies could easily crush most minor villages if they so pleased, but Kusa was the exception to the rule. Kusa hadn't always been classified as a minor village. They were once so powerful even Konoha would be hard-pressed to beat them if it ever came to war. No, Jiraiya shook his head. Konoha would have probably lost if they had waged war against Kusa. Fortunately, it never came to that. At the height of its power, Kusa was torn apart due to a civil war sparked by greed for riches and power by noblemen and shinobi alike. The sacred tools left behind by Rikudo Sannin, once assembled by the Hidden Grass, were lost, taken by Kumo, and their fortresses were destroyed by Iwa, who subsequently capitalized on the opportunity to weaken them severely economically by usurping a chunk of their clientele. By the end of the war, the daimyo was dead, as was his entire family. Sojin took control shortly after, and the new daimyo fell in line with his agenda. Ever since Sojin's ascension, Kusugakure had become a fearsome military power, and the village was remodeled as a stronghold much like all shinobi villages were in the olden days, and the leader of Kusa ruled like a general, giving rise to his moniker as Shogun no Sojin. Even by shinobi standards, the leader of Kusugakure was exceptionally cutthroat, downright cruel even according to some. Jiraiya frowned at the thought of having to face the man, and now Kusa was back on its way to becoming a powerful village. And as if that wasn't unnerving enough, they had good relationship with Oto. Of course, they denied allowing Orochimaru to masquerade as a Kusa genin during the Chunin exams, but that was politics. As the Gama Sannin reached for his cup of tea, he stayed his hand, noticing a crack in the porcelain. His frown deepened. He did not consider himself to be very superstitious, but suddenly he felt the urge to forego his usually detours and head straight back to Konoha to report what he knew. Undisclosed location. Danzo's lone visible eye remained on Itachi as they continued to stare at one another. To what do I owe this pleasure? He asked again as his operatives shifted in the shadows, ready to strike at a moment's notice. No, ready to strike in an instant. Have you come to bring me the other eye? I know you have it. Itachi's Sharingan eyes spiraled dangerously. You know why I am here, Danzo, he replied. Uchiha Sasuke, Danzo said the name slowly with a hint of a disdain. Such attachment is beneath you, Itachi. Sandaime-sama was very clear, Itachi said, ignoring the remark. My brother is off limits to you, now and forever. Whatever plans you have in motion after Sandaime-sama passes, forget about them. Danzo maintained his calm composure, but there was a hint of a sneer in response. Shouldn't you be worried for your own health? Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly, and the old war hawk jumped on the opportunity. Did you really think you could hide it forever? Itachi's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, as if waiting for Danzo to reveal exactly what he knew. The war hawk leant on his case, placing one hand on another with a thin smile of satisfaction. Itachi had not come to fight, and there would be no violence so long as he didn't instigate it. I heard the rumors regarding your failing, Danzo began slowly. They appear to have some merit to them. Of course, anyone with access to kind of information he had would have heard the rumors regarding Uchiha Itachi's failing health. There were only so many S-rank shinobi that walked the earth, and thus villages and other organizations took a particular interest in tracking their whereabouts, which was often impossible, and health. Often fearsome shinobi that had not yet reached that classification used this information to track and kill S-rank shinobi whose reputation they could then usurp. Itachi maintained his level-headedness. If you are so foolish enough to think I am no longer a threat, you will regret it. He spoke the truth, the leader of Root, knew. Itachi wouldn't have stormed the village if he wasn't. There are other methods of letting me know you are still a threat, Danzo replied coolly. Why come to me directly? Did you want an excuse to see your brother? Such attachment is beneath you. Rumors can be dangerous. Itachi cut him off with a hint of knowing in his voice. More often than not, they turn out to be fake or inaccurate, but on occasion you find the truth. And that is? Itachi's eyes took a cold shine to them, brimming with cold and calculative restraint. While I've been away, you took it upon yourself to pillage the corpses of my clansmen, and you used a traitor to this village to help implant them into you, he stated as his eyes shifted to Danzo's hidden arm. You disgust me. I do not need these eyes to know it is true. Tell me, were their corpses even cold when you desecrated them? Why let good tools go to waste? Danzo challenged. And did you not work with this traitor? What gives you the right to judge me, Itachi? You and I are no different. Itachi glared at Danzo, but he made no further comment on the matter. While Danzo was comfortable speaking openly in front of his minions, he was not. Stay away from Uchiha Sasuke or I will end you and your entire organization. I have no use for your younger brother, the Root leader stated simply. He is weak, impulsive, ruled by his own fear and anger. He is nothing like you. You had no use for Shursui, only his eyes, which you took by force, Itachi snarled. He grew intolerant of seeing the warmonger already. You and Shursui were my greatest pupils, Danzo said with an underlying tone of disappointment. Your father was wise to give you to me. If only he had done so sooner. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe you would have one day taken over Root. You betrayed my father like you betray everyone else. You killed Shursui. Itachi burst out in a highly unusual show of anger. With the emotional outburst came unpleasant memories. A young Itachi fell to the ground with a dull thud as his victor, a child only slightly older than him, stood over him with a kind face. Are you okay, Itachi? Is this what Fugaku was talking about when he spoke of the greatest talent the Uchiha has seen in generations? Clearly, the Uchiha have fallen. The older child scowled at the masked man standing next to a somewhat younger Danzo. In his eyes was a pair of fully matured Sharingan spiraling fiercely. The Uchiha have not fallen. We are the elite descendants of the Uchiha Madara and this child is supposed to be greatest since Madara? The boy can't even bring himself to fight you. He is far too soft to be a shinobi. Shursui glared at masked man for a moment and then, turning to the younger boy, gave an encouraging smile. Don't be afraid, little brother. I believe in you, Shursui Nizan. Itachi blinked in an attempt to clear his head, forcing his mind to the present, and focusing his anger at the man that had ruined his life. You lie and deceive and kill for your own selfish goals, not for the good of the village. And the Uchiha were simply your pawns. You wanted us to revolt so you could take control. That is why you helped my father prepare for years. But when the Sandaime found out, you were the first to call for our heads. You are a user, Danzo, and a betrayer. You used me and Shursui like you used my father and my clansmen, but you will not have Uchiha Sasuke. As Itachi's voice gained volume, yellow-like chakra formed around his body, forming into a spectral body, the Susanoo, the Uchiha clan's strongest jutsu. Several Root shinobi pounced before Danzo could tell them otherwise. Itachi hardly paid them any attention as he simply raised a hand and his spectral protector caught them midair with its 3 arms and immediately crushing them like insects. Stand down. Danzo remained cool despite the forcefulness in his tone. With a simple gesture of his hand, the operatives backed away. Fugaku was a fool, easy to manipulate. His eagerness to avenge his great-grandfather Uchiha Madara was his greatest weakness. Do you know the reason why he gave you to me? Itachi gave no response, maintaining a steely expression. Your father was stronger than most shinobi I have encountered, but he knew he could not properly train you, that he could not ensure you realized your full potential. He came to me instead, and I could see it in you the moment I first laid eyes on you as a child. You are killer, Itachi, and you too are a betrayer. Your life is nothing but a lie, a fabrication of misguided nobleness. Earlier I said you and I are the same. However, there is one fundamental difference between you and I. Do you know what that difference is? I know what I am. I kill, we kill, he gestured to his operatives, and we use others and we lie, and we do it without remorse because we know what this world truly is like. The one thing you and I have in common the most is our love for this village, Itachi. And if I could protect Konoha by setting the rest of the world on fire, I would do it in a heartbeat. Silence reigned for what seemed an eternity to some of the operatives, but in reality was only a few seconds. You're a madman living in a warped reality, Itachi said slowly and quietly. You are dangerous, both to Konoha and the world. There would never be peace if you had your way, would there? You relish in war and violence, and what you truly fear is losing your purpose in this hate-filled world. You are a force truly evil, Danzo. And then it was Danzo's turn to fall silent. As it dawned on Itachi what kind of man he truly was, Danzo deep down knew at least part of it was true. His greatest fear was losing his purpose. It was this fear that was his reason why he had made Konoha his purpose, his object of desire. Protecting it was a life's work. It was a life of purpose. Leave, Uchiha Sasuke, will not be touched, the warmonger cut off. Leave, he repeated with a forceful tone. Itachi gave no reply, merely glaring at Danzo, who knew killing him was the only thing on Itachi's mind. But he wouldn't, so long as he stayed away from his precious younger brother. Uchiha Itachi would be no threat, because he was a patriot, even now, and as much as he hated Root, he knew love for Konoha still, and acknowledged the necessity of it, and men like Danzo. I will stay away from your younger brother, but in return, I want Uchiha Shursei's other eye. In an instant, Itachi's eyes changed into the Mangekyo Sharingan, spinning wildly and out of control with unadulterated hatred. The air pressure shot up as his chakra climbed. Danzo remained unimpressed and impassive, only half expecting black flames to appear. I will not give you Shursei's eye, Itachi refused with hate and disgust in his voice. You will stay away from Uchiha Sasuke and you will honor our agreement once the Sandaime passes. Danzo merely gave a sigh and light inclination of his head in dismissive manner. It was worth a try, he remarked as he nodded to his nearest lieutenant. Have everyone stand down. This meeting is over. Don't make me come back here, Danzo, Itachi warned as his Susanoo receded and his body began to dissolve in a school of crows. Stay away from Uchiha Sasuke. Tsunade vs. Kisame. An explosion of water rained a heavy downpour, and Kisame slid back over the water, holding his lower ribs as he spat out a mouthful of blood. To break 3 ribs and rupture one of my kidney with a single blow, the Kiri Nuke-nin vomited another mouthful of blood. Clearly you haven't lost your touch. Samahada's hilt extended and wrapped around him lower abdomen, instantaneously healing his wounds. Tsunade scowled at the shark man. Did you think you could just walk into my village and do as you please? If there is one thing I hate, it's being underestimated. From the sidelines several Konohanin could only marvel at their village leader's power. Hokage-sama is amazing. Kisame gripped Samahada's hilt tightly as the blade began to screech with irritation. Jijijijijijai. It was clear the blade demanded sustenance. Don't be selfish now, Samahada. I'll feed you soon enough, Kisame chastised with a beleaguered frown. That is quite a troublesome form of taijutsu, Sannin no Tsunade, he said to the Hokage. You release your chakra quicker than Samahada can absorb it. It's fortunate you can't keep it up for long, your blows have become weaker. Tsunade smiled thinly. What makes you think I've been using chakra? From appearance alone it was clear she was not bluffing. 1. Kisame nearly did a double take. You mean to say you stopped using your chakra-enhanced strength? In the back of his mind, the shark man cursed himself. Of course, if she had continued to use her chakra-enhanced strength, Samahada would have eventually been able to read the timing of her release. But what kind of inhuman strength does this woman possess? I had heard of your monstrous natural strength, but this is unbelievable. Tsunade of the Sannin. I haven't been using chakra for a while now, Tsunade confirmed with a mocking smile. Even in old age her sense of superiority would resurface now and then. You are my enemy, so I won't indulge you with the details, but I will tell you this. My chakra-enhanced strength has no limitations or drawbacks. The reason I stopped using it is the same reason why you can't absorb my chakra on proximity. Kisame's eyes widened as he suddenly realized why Samahada had been unable to steal the Hokage's chakra. I can't be. You cut off your own chakra pathway system? Orochimaru isn't the only one capable of kenjutsu, Tsunade stated as she sharpened her stance. You won't be able to take a drop of my chakra. Eventually you will run out from healing your own wounds and you will die. Chi! Kisame swung Samahada angrily and rested it on his shoulder. We shall see. A crow came soaring towards the swordsman, resting his other shoulder. It looked at him once, cawing as though communicating, and set off to the sky. Kisame forced a confident grin and lowered his blade. Looks like we'll have to finish this another time, Hokage. Before Tsunade could close into him, the swordsman slammed his hands together to weave a hand seal. Suitun, Suikoden no Jutsu. Water surrounded the swordsman in the form of a shark, and a moment later the river itself began to swirl beneath the swordsman. Suitun, Mizumyaka Same Hoka, Jutsu, Mizumyaka's same Hoka water pulse shark rocket, and before anyone could stop him, the water in the river shot upwards like a fierce explosion, towering several dozen feet in the air and propelling the swordsman conjured shark like a rocket. Tsunade clenched her fists, turning to the nearest ANBU operative. Tenzo, he was by her side in an instant. Your orders? Assemble a team and go after him. He's heading north from here towards the Naka River, meaning Itachi must have told him about the underwater passages used by the Marine Division. Make sure he doesn't get there before you do. Understood. Tsunade gave a nod in response. Be careful, and dismissed. Is there? Naruto repeated the question. If Orochimaru's Jun is causing this, then. Naruto! Sasuke reached over and grabbed the blonde by his shirt. Mind your own business. I won't tell you again. Naruto opened-mouthed to respond but lost his words as he found half of Sasuke's face covered in black marks. Itachi is mine to kill, Sasuke said as he pushed him aside. If you get in the way of my ambition, I'll kill you too. Fine, then be my guest and go ahead. Naruto shouted back angrily. You want to fight him on your own? You want to get revenge? He's right there. Go fight him, Sasuke snarled at him before turning to Itachi again. I don't need you to tell me that. As Sasuke began to weave hand seals, the Fujihoin on his back exuded a reddish hue as it began to pulsate similarly to the beating of a heart. You're out of your mind, Sasuke. Naruto knew there was no stopping his former teammate, who had clearly meant what they said about killing him if he stood in his way. Damn it, why do you have to be troublesome? Kaiga Bunshin no Jutsu. In quick succession 4 clones burst into existence and seized the young Sharingan wielder, disrupting his jutsu as the original dashed forward, weaving hand seals of his own. Sasuke is no condition to fight right now. He'll get us both killed if I don't do something. Concluding his final hand seal, Naruto dispatched 4 chakra-coated kunai and followed up with a torrent of flames, augmenting the lethality of his projectiles. As expected, Itachi dissolved into crows against, using his familiars to mask his shunshin. This time Naruto knew what to do, however. There was a certain pattern Itachi stuck to when using his shunshin, Naruto had noticed. It was rather straightforward and simple, but very effective nonetheless. He'll come at me from the right, Naruto thought as he twirled another kunai in his hand, making sure to attach an exploding tag to it. As if mocking him, the crows continued to caw and flap their wings loudly. It irritated him, but he refused to let it distract him. If he did, there was a good chance he'd be pulled into another genjutsu, and given his own mediocrity with illusions and Sasuke's frame of mind, he wasn't so sure he could come back from that. Raising a one-handed tiger seal, Naruto prepared a Doryu Taiga. He's going to come from my right. I know it. Did you think it would be that easy? A voice said from his left. Naruto's eyes widened for a second, but he willed himself to swing his kunai. Itachi caught his wrist with minimal effort, and seized his face before he could spit out the volume of hardening mud. I deliberately led you to believe there was a certain pattern to my shunshin, Itachi revealed as he exerted more power of his grip, causing the blonde to flinch in pain whilst he tried to push the Akatsuki member off with his free hand to no avail. Itachi! Sasuke screamed, as he finally broke free with a burst of lightning from the Chidori, destroying the clones as he flew at Itachi. Itachi flung Naruto like a ragdoll toward his younger brother. Foolish little brother, you are predictable, he said as Sasuke ducked under the flying blonde and charged forward. Die! The younger Uchiha screamed as he stabbed at his brother. Much to his own disbelief, Itachi once again intercepted his attack, graping his wrist. For a moment Sasuke feared he would once again be on the receiving end of his own jutsu. You lack many things, Itachi said as he forced Sasuke's wrist to the sky. You lack patience and self-control, but most of all, you lack hatred. Wide-eyed, Sasuke felt fear of such magnitude he could hardly breathe, much less speak. I will show you true hatred, foolish little brother, Itachi told him as his eyes began to change into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Tsukuyomi! And just like that, Sasuke's form slumped, and the Chidori died out along with the receding markings of the cursed seal of heaven. Naruto's eyes widened in fear as he saw Itachi cast his brother aside. Sasuke! There was no response, not even a single twitch, prompting the Jinchuriki to fear the worst. This couldn't possibly be happening. No, he refused to believe it. Oh, Sasuke! Get up! This isn't the time to be sleeping. Sasuke? He was weak, Itachi said as he focused his attention on the Jinchuriki. Weak and foolish. He would not have survived for long in this world. I did him a kindness. Sasuke's dead? Itachi say anything, nor did he need to. His body language conveyed it just fine. Sasuke was dead. Naruto didn't say a word as he picked himself up and slowly walked past the older Uchiha, whose eyes followed him curiosity. As he knelt by his rival's unmoving body, Naruto simply stared at him. He's not breathing, is he? Strangely enough, his mind felt cleared from distractions. It was as if all of his fears and background thoughts were shoved past. It was an experience similar to his initial Jinchuriki mode but different in a way he couldn't quite describe. It felt as though he had gone numb from all the pain, as though his mind had checked out of reality in utter disbelief. He felt nothing, yet that nothingness stung. He felt numb, yet he felt as though he had an insurmountable and immovable weight on his chest. He wanted to both cry and laugh for some odd reason. He didn't quite know what he wanted to do. Is this grief? He wondered as his vision blurred. I guess that decides it. Itachi turned his head slightly. What do you mean? He asked calmly. Naruto ran the back of his hand across his eyes as he folded Sasuke's arms over his chest. I'm going to kill you, he said in a voice so empty of he wasn't so sure belonged to him anymore. For him, is that so? Itachi replied as calmly as usual as the blonde stood up. Then come, you will soon join him. Just as he said it, Naruto disappeared by means of a shunshin powered by so much chakra even Itachi seemed notably surprised by it. Not enough to prevent him from catching Naruto's punch, but enough so to slower his reaction time that he actually felt pain shoot through his arm from the sheer force of the blow. Even in the state he was, Naruto managed to crack a small smile, though it was so devoid of mirth even a seasonable shinobi would feel a shiver run down their spine. Itachi's eyes narrowed as he suddenly found both their hands covered in mud. Not even you will be able to survive this, Naruto stated as he held up a fist full of explosive notes. I may be joining Sasuke soon, but at the very least I'll take you with me. Are you insane? How Itachi managed to maintain his composure was beyond the blonde's understanding. So even you are afraid of dying, huh? Naruto mocked as the exploding tags began to glow. Well, too bad. A bright light preceded an explosion which sound carried several miles. Elsewhere, Rei maintained her stance as she began to close in on the Itachi clone, mindful of the fact that, presuming this was a Kage Bunshin, she would only have to land one direct blow to dispel it. Your form is adequate but you will not succeed, Itachi's clown warned her. Rei regarded the warning and pounced, aiming a kick to where the clone's cervical vertebrae would be, just as she had been thought. What happened next was not unforeseeable, but no less shocking, as the clone easily saw through her attack, turning it on her, and slamming her to a nearby tree with enough force to knock the air right out of her lungs. I warned you, the clone reminded as he leveled a kunai to her neck, specifically above an artery that would undoubtedly prove fatal if it were cut. You are one of Danzo's tools, that much I know simply from looking at you, the Itachi clone stated. I have some questions for you. Rei's expression remained completely and utterly blank, devoid of any emotion whatsoever. Not even fear. Judging from your counter, you're familiar with root taijutsu. You are one of us. I was one of you, Itachi's clone corrected. There are no former root members, the young kunoichi replied with a firm shake of her head. You are one of us, the clone ignored her defiance. I have some questions for you. I cannot answer them, Rei stated as she stuck out her tongue, upon which the silencing seal of Danzo was present. Even if I wanted to, I could not give you the answers you seek. Itachi showed something reminiscent of Rai's smile. You underestimate me, the Sharingan user said as his eyes began to spiral. The clone took a step back and began to weave hand seals. Do not move. Knowing it would be futile to attempt to escape, Rei did as he told her. What are you going to do me? Rather than answering her, the clone showed her. Jun Kai, Mangekyo Shasho. Before the kunoichi could react, the clone reached out with a hand covered in black fuin markings and placed it on her forehead. Jun Kai Mangekyo Shasho, Curseal release, kaleidoscope release from prison. As soon as he touched her, an intense pain shot through Rei's brain, and continued to thrash throughout her body without mercy or consideration. She didn't even try to hold in her screams as the pain was unreal. It was unbearable and torturous, and it came with foulness beyond anything she had ever experienced. She wanted a release as the pain intensified. She wanted to die. And then, as soon as it happened, the pain melted away and Rei fell to her knees, exhausted, but still conscious. Barely. To maintain consciousness through that, Root's conditioning must be even more rigorous than I remember, the Itachi clone noted as he stood over her. Now then, let us talk. What did you do to me? Rei asked in a voice so raspy and wrung with pain she hardly recognized it as her own. What was that? I did you a kindness, Itachi answered simply. Now, will you answer my questions willingly, or must I subjugate your mind once more? Rei weighed her options for a long, tense moment. She was still in pain. Her entire body ached as though she had been crushed by a tree, but this did not hamper her ability to think clearly. For the time being, she was not capable of fighting, but fortunately Itachi had no apparent intention to kill her. What do you want to know? For a moment the Nukenin looked surprised. That was easier than expected, he noted with a hint of surprise. I had thought you would need some more convincing. If I don't tell you willingly, you will make me, and then you will kill me. My chances of survival are significantly higher if I cooperate, Rei said without so much a hint of indignation. I am of no use to Danzo-sama in death. Itachi gave her an appraising look. Danzo's other tools would surely have tried resisted, perhaps even committed suicide. What is your assignment? Is it Uzumaki Naruto? There was a noticeable pause before she answered. Yes, she said simply. My mission is Uzumaki Naruto. Then Itachi's questions took a sudden turn. Are you with Uzumaki under Danzo's orders? Rei was stunned, obviously caught off guard by the question. Danzo-sama has operatives in most departments and divisions. I was planted in the Niji Shotai before he was assigned to it. When we were assigned to the same team, my handler ordered me to get close to Uzumaki. He strongly advised I became more than friends with him. For a moment Itachi processed a bit of information, making no further comment on her relationship with the Jinchuriki. Why the Niji Shotai? He then asked. I do not know, Rei answered truthfully. My handlers never give me specifics. You know something, the clone stated with a knowing look. Speak. I think it has something to do with Akatsuki. Not long after I was stationed there, you became our focus. I believe Danzo-sama anticipated this and wanted eyes and ears on the platoon's efforts. I see. Prior to the Niji Shotai, where were you stationed? I spent most of time in Kusa, Rei answered promptly. I did work there as a medic and interrogation assistant. Where else have you been stationed? Itachi's inquisitiveness was unexpected, but she answered the question as promptly as the others. Cha no Kuni, Tsuchi no Kuni and Aim no Kuni mostly. Route operates mostly outside of Konoha. When did Danzo have you pushed through the system? Recently, she answered with a certain vagueness the clone immediately picked up on. Where are you from? Itachi's eyes shined with curiosity. To him, she was like a puzzle that became more interesting as he put the pieces together. With every question answered his impression of her changed. This was clearly a question she did not want to answer, if her expression was anything to go by. Her reluctance only increased his intrigue. Answer the question. I was recruited out of an orphanage in the countryside, she revealed after a tense moment of silence. I was told my family is originally from Yuno Kuni, but I never knew them. They abandoned me on the road when I was too young to remember. I was found by a sisterhood of priestesses and they took me in. They ran an orphanage in the countryside, where they raised me and my sister. I know of that orphanage, Itachi revealed with a cold tone she knew was not for her. It is subsidized by Root in return for occasionally recruiting children fit to be his shinobi. Your sister, is she alive? Rei clenched her fists, sensing he was alluding to something else, something sinister. What are you asking me? She demanded. Did you kill your sister? Itachi asked in a voice so cold, Rei's insides turned into ice. Danzo usually recruits in pairs but only ever becomes a true Root operative. In other words, he has them fight to the death. Did you kill your sister? No, Rei said hotly as she found her voice again. I could never do such a thing to my sister. You were lucky, Itachi said to her with a voice so cold, it was as though he was thinking of unpleasant times. What happened to your sister? Is she still active in the field? The kunoichi shook her head. No, Itachi turned his head with curiosity. Danzo let her quit? He sounded doubtful to say the least. There was no leaving Root, not unless you were powerful enough to be a threat to Danzo. She's on indefinite leave. What does your sister do? Is she a medic like you? Rei glared at the rogue ninja. Why are you so interested in my sister? She has nothing to do with this. Answer the question, Itachi commanded forcefully. My sister is a seductress, Rei answered with a glare. There was clear reluctance and resentment in her voice and eyes. During her last assignment, she became pregnant with the target's child. She was given permission to go on indefinite leave and raise it. Your eyes betray your guilt, Itachi stated. Why do you feel guilt over your sister? Rei didn't know what it was. Maybe it was her fatigue, or perhaps it was the almost sympathetic tone in Itachi's voice. But whatever it was, it made it easy for her to answer the question. It should have been me. Itachi understood her immediately. My sister, even though we're not related by blood, she has always been there for me, Rei said quietly. She taught me how to be a medic. The young kunoichi gave her a mirthless smile. She was always better than I was, probably still is. Then one day, when we were still in training, the handlers had all the girls assemble. There was a mission that needed to be done, and the target had a preference for young girls. I was the youngest, so they picked me. I didn't want to do it, but no matter how much I begged and cried, they wouldn't listen. Then my sister, she volunteered for the mission. She is only 2 years older than me. She was just a child, but she wasn't afraid. And she was good at it, so they kept assigning her to those missions. But she never once complained, my sister. She never once blamed me. Never underestimate the lengths siblings will go through for another, Itachi said finally in a quiet voice that matched her own. He then turned around and began to walk in a different direction. Your secret is safe with me. You're letting me go? I have no reason not to. Rei frowned, confused and once again caught off guard. You're not like the rumors describe you. You're different. The Itachi clone paused mid-stride. Danzo is not a kind man, it then said. He knows no kindness or compassion, only pragmatism. One day he will have use again for your sister or her child, and he will come for them. See to it you repay your sister's kindness. Before Rei could even answer, the clone burst into a pillar of smoke, leaving her alone in the woods. A moment later she collapsed to the ground, where she remained unmoving for quite some time. Naruto versus Itachi. Naruto's opened his eyes slowly as his ears rung painfully. He coughed numerous times as he crawled to his feet, covered in dirt and soot and the smell of burnt wood in his nostrils. His entire body ached as though he had lost the wrestling match against Gamabunta. What happened? He had been certain the explosive notes had gone off. How was he still alive? He could only wonder as he wiped the back of his hand over his forehead in an effort to clear the soot. A rustling sound prompted him to snap his eyes to the source. As soon as his eyes fell on Itachi, his eyes widened. While unhurt, Itachi's eyes were settled in a dark glare that sought to it. The young Jinchuriki experienced a magnitude of fear that kept him planted where he was. Itachi did not say a word as he closed the distance between them in an instant, and struck the blonde with such force he solidly decked him through a tree. Naruto held his ribs and coughed blood. Pain coursed through his body, but he refused to give it voice, determined to die on his feet as he once again stood up defiantly, albeit shakily. And again Itachi was upon him, this time appearing mid-air as he aimed kick against Naruto's face. Naruto raised his forearm in an attempt to block it, but the sheer force behind the kick saw to it he not only felt shin connect to his jaw but that his shoulder popped out of its socket. Ah dash! Naruto grit his teeth as he bounded off a tree and fell to his knees, face buried in the dirt, as he tightly gripped his swollen shoulder from which his arm dangled in an unnatural angle. He suppressed another cry, saliva overflowing from his mouth and biting his lips hard enough they began to bleed. Fuck you! Naruto managed to utter as he got to his feet again. Itachi's hand shot out at a speed he couldn't follow and gripped his neck tightly, slowly crushing his windpipe and easily lifting him off the ground in a show of deceptive strength. I misspoke earlier. You are weak, Naruto responded with spitting blood on the Uchiha's face. He did not regret the powerful punch that dug under his ribs in retaliation. Fu, you, at the level you are now, it would be far too easy to kill you. Itachi ignored the look of confusion in his prey's eyes. I cannot truly test my limits on a weakling such as you. What are you talking about? Naruto managed as he struggled to breathe. Itachi relieved his tight grip on his windpipe, though only a little. I wish to see the limits of these eyes, Itachi said as his eyes spun menacingly. That is the only reason I let Sasuke live. His potential is the only reason I spared him. Then why did you kill him? Naruto screamed as tears stung at his eyes and his eyes once again turned red. Why did you have to kill him? Tell me, you too have the potential to become a powerful shinobi one day, Itachi said as he ignored him. I will spare you today so that one day you can come before me and challenge me once more. I'll kill you! Naruto vowed in a raspy voice. I'll rip your fucking eyes out and shove them down your throat, you bastard. To his surprise, Itachi gave a mocking smile. That's the spirit, he said as he dropped the Jinchuriki and turned on his heel to deliver a powerful roundhouse kick to his chest, sending him crashing into a particularly thick tree. I will come for you, Uzumaki Naruto. We will come for you, Akatsuki. Naruto realized. Yes. Akatsuki? The Sharingan genius nodded. The only reason I joined them was for the opportunity to test the full extent of my abilities. Our leader has instructed us to stay away for now, but I will come for you, Uzumaki Naruto. And if not me, there will be others. For as long as you live, Akatsuki will never let you know peace. What do you people want from me? Naruto realized the answer to his own question before the Uchiha could answer. The Kyuubi? Itachi felt neither the need to confirm or deny it. Prepare yourself, Uzumaki Naruto. And as a reminder, I will show you a fraction of the hell that awaits you, he added as he knelt before him and grabbed his chin, forcing him to look him in his eyes. Tsukuyomi! Naruto's eyes rolled in the back of his head, and he slumped against the tree, unconscious. Suddenly, Itachi clapped his hand over his eye. He breathed heavily and grit his teeth through the pain. To think he managed to destroy my clone. I shouldn't have underestimated him. The rogue ninja almost let out a cry of pain as his eyes and body racked with pain so intense it would have killed an ordinary man several times over. How Itachi managed to preserve was a mystery, but he did. There was not much time for him to tend to his pain, as Itachi rose to his full height and turned to the direction he sensed two newcomers coming from. You're not one to go wild like this, Itachi-kun, Saratobi Hiruzen said calmly. He was dressed in his red and white garb sans the hat, and his face was held with an unreadable expression. The Sharingan wielder briefly looked to the retired Hokage's companion, Kosuke, who nodded to him in a sort of greeting and a show of understanding. Itachi then kneeled before the Sandaime and bowed his head. Hokage-sama, undisclosed location. The sound of battle raged like a beast in the dark and poorly lit corridors of the underground labyrinths. Oto shinobi in purple shinobi garb dashed through the halls in formation. You, inform Orochimaru-sama Akatsuki's forces are attacking, said the Jonin charge to one of the shinobi running beside him. Go! Go now! The shinobi merely nodded and divided into another ally. Just an explosion rocked the corridors. Chips of ceiling fell down, screaming, and more explosions followed. The sound of fire sucking the oxygen out of the air alerted the ninja of the flames flying down the dark halls. Scatter! The sounds of metal upon metal continued in the dark halls. Every few or so moments the sounds of death rattles and screams sounded. When Naruto opened his eyes, he wasn't so sure he had, for the world was dark and indiscernible. The sky was dark and the moon was red like blood and everything else was either pure white or pure darkness. Where am I? His voice echoed into the infinity. You are in a world of my creation. It was then that Naruto noticed he was bound to a crucifix. Itachi, I will show you your greatest nightmares. The blonde struggled fiercely against his bindings but found them to be impossible to loosen. Where are you? Show yourself, you bastard. Only his eyes and mouth were free, but it mattered hardly. Crows cawed provocatively, as though they were trying to give rise to his anger. You have not suffered enough to become truly powerful, Uzumaki Naruto. It was then that Itachi appeared. His eyes were like red moons and stared right at his soul. You will suffer. There was no question whether that was going to happen by the looks of it. And through your suffering you will find hatred. There was a pause. And through hatred you will find power. Shut up! Naruto screamed at him. Let me go, you dash! And then there was another voice. Naruto, you're going to experience a lot of pain and suffering. His eyes widened as he slowly began to turn his head. Why was that voice so familiar? Why did his heart suddenly start to ache? Remember who you are. Find a goal, a dream, and don't stop trying until it comes true. And then he saw her, bathed in light, and she was beautiful in a way he had never thought possible. Her hair was long and red, and her eyes were a shade of violet prettier than any gem. Her skin was slightly pale and smooth. She was still young. Far too young. There's so much more I want to say, to teach you. I want to stay with you. What the fuck is this? His voice was gruff and his throat hurt as he felt tears stinging behind his eyes. This woman, he knew who she was. Why did he know her? You son of a bitch. He could not tear his eyes from her. Itachi's expression remained unreadable and his eyes as calculative as before. Something happened to you when you were a newborn, he said emotionlessly. Something so terrible you mind repressed for all these years. I will show you the horrors you have hidden away from yourself. The woman smiled. Naruto, make it stop, he begged as tears began to fall. Just stop, please, I love you. There was no stopping the cascade of tears now. And Naruto cried, truly cried, for the first time in years. He remembered her. He remembered her from that night. He remembered everything from that night. And so he sobbed and cried without neither the will nor capacity to hold back his sorrow. Kacchan, you remember, Itachi observed. Good. And then he motioned his hand. A gargantuan claw tore through Uzumaki Kushina. She screamed, louder than anyone Naruto had ever screamed. And it broke his heart. The Kyuubi's eye loomed over Kushina as he growled with hatred in his eyes. It did not speak, nor did its eyes show any remorse of what its claws were doing. Uzumaki Kushina's screams continued for days as the scenario relapses over and over. And her son watched, over and over as his mother was ripped to shreds in front of him, her life snubbed out like a dim candlelight, only to be relit for a few more moments. It was an illusion, yet Naruto knew it was real. He knew that, though Itachi had somehow managed to bring forth his worst nightmare, that this was not all there was to it. But it did not matter because it looked real and it felt real. For 72 hours, Uzumaki Naruto relived the death of his mother, and by the end of it, Uzumaki Naruto was truly and utterly broken.